5:31 p.m. Greetings and welcome to everyone, members of the committee, members of the public. We thank you for being here. Couple of announcements as we get started. First and most important of which is bathrooms are to the left, and then a right and a left down this corridor. So if you do need to use the restrooms during the meeting, that's where they are. Also, there are a couple sign-up sheets going around, one for committee members and one for members of the public. So please be sure to sign in so we have that for the public record. Appreciate that. Also, there are extra copies of today's agenda and the minutes of the last meeting available just outside this door as well for committee members or members of the public. So help yourself to those. Anything else that needs to be said before we formally get started? If not, let's roll. If we can take a quick look at today's agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda as proposed? I have one recommendation, and that is prior to public comment. We have Jason Masajewski here, who is the chair of the Western Washtenaw Recycling Authority, who would like to give us, and also a Dexter Township trustee, who would like to give us an update on the Ann Arbor recycling situation, particularly its processing, and the role that Western Washtenaw is currently playing in that situation. So with the committee's approval, we will do that right up front before the first public comment section. Any objection to that addition? Yeah, and then if we could, with that change, is the agenda okay as presented? If so, if members of the committee can signify the affirmative with an aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Jason, welcome.
Should I stand here?
I guess, it's a little awkward.
This row's already had.
Oh, we do have a podium.
All right, I'll stand over here. So, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk for a couple of minutes about what the Western Washtenaw Recycling Authority is doing with the city of Ann Arbor right now. My name is Jason Masajewski. I'm a Dexter Township trustee, and with that, I have the honor of being the chair of the Western Washtenaw Recycling Authority Board. Frank Hammer, Chelsea City Councilman, longtime chair of the WWRA Board, sent me an email earlier this afternoon suggesting that I might want to stop by and just offer a couple of comments about the current situation with the city of Ann Arbor. About a week ago now, I was contacted by Christine Gomes from the city of Ann Arbor, alerting me, or actually inquiring about whether the WWRA's MRF could handle some recyclable tonnage from the city of Ann Arbor. And so I checked with our staff. We have a staff of 9 full-time members. We normally process anywhere from 25 to 30 tons a day, so doing this extra volume would be quite a significant thing for us. We're nowhere near the size of the city of Ann Arbor's MRF, but nonetheless, we exist to make sure that recycling materials don't get into the landfill. Our mission is to make sure that our residents are recycling and doing everything we can to promote recycling. So when Ann Arbor called, the members of our board and the staff at the WWRA stepped forward and said we want to do what we can to help out and make sure that we can do everything possible to put their recyclables through the single stream system that we have and get them to the recycling market. Today is day 3 of that process. We're told that it's supposedly going to be a very short-term situation. Our staff has taken in, on the first day, I believe, 38 tons of material. Yesterday it was about 29 tons, and today they should be wrapping up just about right now, and I'll get a report a little bit later this evening, but we expect it to, again, be in the 30-ton range again today. So I've been in regular contact with Christina from the city, monitoring what's going on. What we are taking in are City of Ann Arbor residents' curbside recycling materials. Their commercial is being handled in some other way, and I'm not exactly sure how they're handling the rest of their load, but we are handling recycling materials being put into the stream by residents in the city of Ann Arbor. And and processing. I think that we processed 57 bales. I don't know if that means anything to anybody here, but it's a lot of material for us. In addition to our regular stuff, we processed 57 bales yesterday. So it's really a great opportunity. The city's been fantastic in terms of reimbursing us on a per ton basis so we can cover our operating costs. Again, we're a facility that is really interested in getting stuff into the recycling market. So we feel we're helping out City of Ann Arbor for a short term, for an issue that they're having. I also look at it, if the WWRA at some point were to have something happen where we needed some help, the colleagues that we, and the contacts we've established at the City of Ann Arbor, I think they'd be able to help us out if we were in a pinch as well. So we're looking at this in a very collegial way, trying to make sure that we're recycling everything we can. Again, I think this is a very short-term situation until the city gets its MRF back up and running, but we're committed to helping out as much as we can at this point. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I was curious, is that just added capacity, or did they send you some help with it?
No, we're doing it with our own staff. We are doing a little bit of overtime, but the per tonnage rate that the City of Ann Arbor is paying us is covering the cost of that. So for the WWRA, we are doing a little better than breaking even in terms of that.
So the plant capacity is around 25 to 30 tons a day?
And the normal, the capacity is greater than that, but on a normal day, we typically do 25 to 30.
And you did 25 additional tons, or you just totaled?
Additional.
Additional, so you're up to 50 tons a day?
Yeah, we're doing, again, it's overtime. We had the guys in last Saturday clearing our floor to make sure we had enough space to accept the materials. So the guys at the MRF have been fantastic. They are very committed to our mission and step right in and are willing to help out. And it's 95 degrees out. The facility manager brought ice cream in for everybody yesterday. So.
Other questions?
Sir.
So does that imply that you have additional capacity for future?
I would say no.
So short term only?
What we're doing to the City of Ann Arbor's material is overtime work. The regular staff that we have is able to handle the regular volume that we get from our 5-member communities plus some other municipalities that we have bins in. So everything we're doing with Ann Arbor is basically overtime work, something that we would normally not do.
Other questions, comments? Let me just say, on behalf of City of Ann Arbor and I think Washtenaw County, I really appreciate your partnership here and your willingness to step up under very trying circumstances with very short turnaround time. And it speaks very well to the authority, and I hope the spirit of collegiality that will carry forward as we undertake our solid waste planning here. I think it's a great message too for us to be thinking in our planning process about such partnerships and redundancy, so that if and when these crises do occur, whether it's in recycling or in other areas, that we're prepared to support one another. So.
Yeah, I would hope as well as we move forward. I think if you pay attention to recycling, glass is a really big issue right now with no market for it. And I'm hoping that maybe we can regionally talk about how to get a resolution for glass, and maybe some way we can process it and turn it into a form that is actually usable by somebody. And that needs to have a regional solution to it. So maybe the relationship we have building this week and next week, and who knows how much farther beyond that, maybe that can lead to some progress on some other issues as well. But I thank you for the comments. I'll pass those along to the staff and the board as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Great. Yes,
I
John.
have a question. Is there any other area in the county that could do what you're doing? Is there any other recycling facility?
My understanding is that there's no other MRFs operating in Washtenaw County. The next closest one, I believe there's one in Royal Oak and one in Romulus, but none in the Washtenaw County area.
We'll be looking at a map of the region shortly, so you'll see where those places may be.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I guess to clarify that answer, Advanced Disposal has a recycle facility on its campus in Fana. It's not single stream, I believe, so to kind of clarify, there's not another single stream facility that they go to, everything mixed together.
And I believe that is Salem Township?
That's correct.
Yeah, that one is.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time, I
Yes.
appreciate it. You have a
Good.
good night.
All right, on to public comment. There's two public comment opportunities in this meeting, the first of which is intended for items related to this specific meeting agenda. And then the public comment section later in the meeting will be for unrelated general comments relating to solid waste issues. So is there anyone who would wish to speak right now? If you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium, if you could introduce yourself and
Yes, my name is Bruce Leonard. I live on Napier Road, south of 7 Mile, very close to the landfill. I want to verify that we're going to go through the timeline of the approval process and when the approvals will happen, or when the vote will happen. And I just want to keep it in front of the public so we're all aware of when it's going to happen.
thank you.
So is that on the agenda then?
That actually is, we're talking
Okay,
about
very good.
updating the timetable, so that will be covered. Any other comments from the public at this time? If not, let's move on to review and approval of the minutes of our June 8th meeting. Thanks to county staff once again for your work in pulling this together. Any comments or questions about the minutes as presented? If not, is someone willing to move approval of these minutes? So moved? Second, Nancy got it. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the minutes of June 8th, 2016 as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes are carried. On to old business. Primary agenda item here is an update on the planning process status, getting to the comments just made by the public. So Anna, if you could walk us through.
Sure. So I handed out a couple things as part of your meeting packet when you got here. One is what I call plan sections versus timeline. So it lists all the different plan sections and the status, and then if it's not complete, when we anticipate to complete it. Everything is connected within the solid waste management plan, and as you know, we're still working through the process. We're going to do goals and objectives. And I think once we set goals and objectives, we'll be able to fill out a lot more of the content of the plan. And then a couple of other things that we have outstanding are the facility descriptions and review that we haven't talked about. We've talked about it somewhat, but we haven't talked about it in depth. So that first sheet is very detailed, but it's our guideline for how we're putting together the plan. And again, shows the phases that we're going through, it shows the status, and then it also shows the time of when we're tackling it. The second thing that I handed you, and then I'll also pull up on the screen for everybody, which is the timeline. Let's see. Okay. This is posted on the county's website, has been there since it was created back in April. And so you printed out a hard copy for you. As well. This is the overview timeline of how we're approaching the plan process. So let's see, we are in July, we are working on goals and objectives. I think in April, we anticipated getting to those a little bit sooner, so we haven't. So I'm gonna update the plan schedule, and as following this meeting, we'll have an updated version on here. So we're gonna do goals and objectives. We have to then, we being RS, we get to do the fun part of writing the plan based on all the great conversation and discussions we've had here. And then ideally, that draft plan will come back to this committee either in October or November. And then following that would be the public comment period. So we're still pushing on this timeline. If I scroll down, this is just the detailed phases. Again, this is all on the county's website, so this is available for public view. And we are right now in phase 3 and phase 4. And so we are looking at, we did the SWOT, we're getting feedback from the public survey, and then we're trying to incorporate that into the plan document. So what my team is doing right now is actually updating everything in the plan that they can, given the information that we have so far. But like I said, a lot of what the plan focuses on is what are your goals and objectives and what aren't your goals and objectives. So we're gonna need to, once we get that part, we can really crank on completing the rest of the plan document. So that is that. So the version you have in your hand is an updated version of I think it's dated 6/23. We'll update it, and then the county will update it as part of the, following the activities of this meeting. So upcoming meetings, we'll see how tonight goes with goals and objectives. I think, given the agenda tonight, we're probably going to get through most of it and then wrap up in the August meeting. We want to talk about different funding options, just as a way to understand how some of this can be paid for, how things are paid for now in the county, and just understanding, what, it wouldn't be something you would include in the plan, but I think it's important to understand as part of setting up the activities that you want to see. Then we're gonna talk hopefully in September about facility descriptions and review that. And then September, October would be finalizing the plan document. And so RS will produce the plan document, we'll send out to this group for review, we'll give you plenty of time to do that. I'm sure you're really excited to read the whole entire plan document all together. And then we'll have to meet and talk about, okay, changes, things like that, what needs to be done, edits, is this correct, questions, but we'll have a plan draft for you. Dave, you look like you have a question for me.
Don't have a question, but I'll let you finish. I think.
No, I'm good, that's about.
Mr. Leonard, and I think majority of the group want to know.
I'll talk about that. So, we
Did you not know Jeff's and I?
we discussed this already before the meeting. But, so the vote, it looks like once we get the, earliest it could be in October, the latest would probably be in December. We would like to have it targeted for November, though, to get the plan put together and draft approved by the committee to go for the 90-day comment period.
Okay, just for the record,
Okay.
a couple points, if I can.
Go ahead.
One is, I guess, just from housekeeping wise, I'm not gonna be here in August. So, I have on vacation, just let everybody know I'm not gonna be here. So I don't see anything, with the deals with advance, deals with the landfill, won't be discussed during August, just for the public's notice.
Okay, so,
I have another more if I could.
Go ahead.
Do. I mean, because obviously we are looking at this as well. I mean, this was important to us. It's one of the reasons why we came to the Solid Waste Planning Commission. I mean, we've been here for a very long time, since the 1960s. The landfill's been here, Advanced Disposal's been running. I've been running the facility, or been at the facility since 1989. So we've been here a long time. And we know that it's important for us to fit into the community. I mean, it's very simple. Before, it was fitting into the Washtenaw County Solid Waste Plan. It's important to fit into this solid waste plan. But now it's very important to fit into Northwest plan. I mean, we recognize, we've been listening, we understand. We may not agree, and I'm not here to try to sympathize. I'm just trying to at least let everybody know. We understand that there's major issues going on at Arbor. There's major issues, in my opinion, that we need to fit in better with Northville Township, as well as Washtenaw County's plan. It's an important part. The landfill, Arbor Hills landfill, is an important part of Washtenaw County, as well as it affects other communities involved. All right. So I want to make sure that everybody understands we recognize that, because one of the important things that's happened in the last couple of months is we had leadership change at Arbor Hills. I'm working with that new leader, new district manager. We're looking at the options of Arbor Hills. We'll be presenting that to the board in a couple of months, because I won't be here in August.
the Solid Waste Planning Board, maybe?
We'll be presenting it to the public.
Okay.
If that's at the board, or if that's beforehand or afterwards, obviously we need public notice. But obviously we recognize that there's local concerns, and we gotta deal with that. But obviously, I'm here, or if the company chooses not for me to be here, the company is invested in working with this board, working with Washtenaw County, working with Salem Township, working with Northville Township, quite frankly, to make us a better neighbor, to make us fit in. That's, I guess, my statement. I just want to make sure it's for the record what we're doing, and we'll start moving forward. Okay? Thanks for sharing.
Thanks. And I'll just add, thanks, Dave, and to understand some of your timeline and what Advance is working on. There's other things that are going on in the county right now that also have an impact on the plan. There's a project for a new potential, they're exploring the feasibility for a new waste diversion site, whether it's a drop-off center or multiple drop-off centers. So if that's on the board and that's gonna happen, that needs to be included in our plan too. So there's lots of different moving parts that are affecting the timeline, and so that's why we don't have a, it's gonna be exactly, but that's our goal, that's what we're working towards, that's our objective, that's the objective I was given, to keep everything moving, but, lots of other things, in addition to what Advanced, will share with us.
Yeah,
as we go too.
and unfortunately, that's my distraction, and it's a huge distraction. You're right, the goals of Washington County, which I live in, City of Ann Arbor, and I live here, these sustainability goals that we need to achieve, as a group, we come together and do that. Bring other problems that I know this board can figure out, but we need to bring it and put it out. Both from a composting, sustainability, recycle, what happened this week with City of Ann Arbor, there's a lot of issues out there that I think we gotta present and get out there and discuss, and sometimes not be distracted to what's going on.
Appreciate that. So other questions relating to the calendar and the evolution of the plan? Otherwise, are you good on this
Yes, I am.
point, Anna? Great, thank you, appreciate that. On to new business. Wanted to briefly talk about the neighborhood tour that several of us went on over the last few weeks. That was sponsored by Fred Chatko, who is a Northville Township trustee. We visited, I think, about 12.5 sites within Northville Township for committee members to get a better understanding of the history and nature and layout of Northville. We had a total of 5 committee members that attended. Of the 15 members, and someone who had done a similar tour before those formal tours, so 6 of the 15 of us actually took advantage of that tour. I think Fred made it known that if there are others that at some point would like that tour, that he would be more than happy to provide that. So in addition to committee members, we also had representation from Washtenaw County staff and Wayne County staff that attended that tour, as well as representative from the county's consultants, RRS, that was also present for those tours. And I think there was at least one other trustee, at least on one of the tours, and one of the local residents that also participated. So I was one of the participants and found it to be very, very helpful and informative, and I appreciate the willingness of Fred and the team at Northville to provide that opportunity to learn more.
And Fred also wanted me to extend his thanks and his offer to do it again to anybody that couldn't make it. He can do it at night, he can do it at other times.
Great.
If people are working and can't make it, he'll do it at night slate.
Great.
And with that, I'd like to hand out the map of
Oh, that
the
was-
route he took.
Provided, sure. I'm almost embarrassed to say that as a result of this tour, I now know more about Northville Township than I do about my own hometown. It made me realize I would love to get a similar tour of where I live and better understand the history and nature of my own community.
I think that he's a member of the historical commission.
I think he is, so he
So
did
he
have
had
a
a
great
good
historical perspective on the history of the community. So heartfelt thank you to the folks at Northville Township to make that possible. Anyone else who was on the tour that would want to comment?
Just
Yeah.
a couple of things to add to it. I too appreciated very much the tour. There were a couple points that were new to me in that, that the folks that went on the tour were saying that in the past, the odors were happened just a few times a year, mostly in connection with compost turning, and that now it's happening several times a week. It's, it's a dramatic change from the previous history of that location. That there were concerns about, we also have a copy of the revisions we looked at for the state of Michigan's section 115, and about closures, responsibilities for closures of landfills. And currently it's at 30 years, the businesses in charge are responsible for any maintenance on closures. And that, that landfill's already been there more than 30 years. It's had multiple turnovers of owners. I think that's something that somehow needs to be addressed, whether at the state level or not, but to hold that in mind, because that's the future. And then,
I'm sorry, Nancy, do you mean by extending it more than 30 years, or are you
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
keeping the owners in place? I'm just wondering, sure.
All of the above. Like, what does that mean? Who's accountable for it? Now there's multiple people overseeing the landfill, and who's gonna actually take care of it if problems arise? And 30 years seems, these things is not gonna be gone in 30 years. It needs some kind
Can
of long-term.
we ask them to speak up, because you don't have speakers today, so we can't hear back here.
I apologize,
I'm sorry, but I didn't realize you didn't have speakers until a minute ago. I can't hear you.
I thought it was me.
No.
Okay, so I basically just said the odors are more frequent now than before, and that the concerns about closure, who's going to oversee the closure of the landfill whenever that does happen? And that right now, there's also at the state level, opening up and evaluating solid waste management at the statewide level, and management of landfills is part of that. And I thought this was very well timed to bring up something like, is 30 years adequate? Exactly who is that takes care of it? And does it need to be something bonded in a third-party entity that's got lots of money in it to be able to respond to future issues? That landfills are still a relatively new technology. It's only since World War II that we've used in the United States. So, 30 years flies by, and
Just-
some can't.
Just to let you know, Nancy, there are surety bonds held by third-party companies
Cool.
for closure and post-closure.
Cool.
So,
Great.
not that it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
If Advanced Disposal walks away, there are millions of dollars in surety bonds. It's under financial assurance in the state regulations, or in the state under Arbor Hills. If you go onto the website, you'll see how much we hold.
Thanks.
Good. Any other comments? All right, let's move on to 6B. Anna providing us with a regional overview of the infrastructure that is currently in place for waste recycling and composting in our region.
Yes, I'm just checking to see if my maps work. Okay, good. I just opened it on something else, and the maps weren't really there, so it wouldn't do me a whole lot of good. So I wanted just to talk a little bit about, we've been talking about what goes on in Washtenaw County. We're talking about the impact of the activities in Washtenaw County, and then talking about kind of what is the regional snapshot look of flow of materials and where things go. But first I wanted to talk about who decides where your stuff goes. And it's a very fancy technical term we use in the solid waste industry. Who decides where your stuff goes? So this map, you guys have seen, we showed it last time, it's in your notes, and it's on the shared file. But it can happen a bunch of different ways of deciding where materials end up. So the ones in the pink are places that we've documented that either have city collection or they contract for collection with a service provider. So in deciding where your stuff goes, these can be ways, having a city provider or a contracted provider can be ways where you can really have the most say in where your stuff goes, whether it's recyclables, compost, yard waste for compost, and then trash. For example, the city of Ann Arbor, they own their own MRF. It's not going to their MRF right now, as we just heard, but they have their own facility. They bring their stuff to their facility. For their waste, because they collect waste, they go out for bid for disposal services and disposal. Where can they take their stuff? Where can they take that waste? And so they get bids and then they select. If you're, let's see, one of the other cities that contracts with a service provider, so that could be a waste management, that could be a advanced disposal. You could have a say in where your stuff goes, or sometimes the service providers come to the table already with an arrangement in place. So if I were, I'm trying to think who does a contract, Dexter or Celine, and I said, okay, we're gonna go out for bid, and we're gonna get bids on collection and processing and disposal. So that means they're trying to figure out who is gonna pick up the stuff, who's gonna process it recycle-wise, and then who's gonna be the place where the end stuff goes, the landfill stuff. So they could do it that way, or Celine could hire somebody and just say, come to the table with whatever you do. So the service providers can come to the table and say, you don't need to bid that out separately, we've already got that taken care of. And so if you sign an arrangement with us, we'll take it to where we have a contract. So there's companies out there that already have arrangements with recycling facilities as well as landfills that cities can take advantage of. Deciding where your stuff goes gets looser and looser the further you go down this list. So the preferred hauler system is, there's some control, if you will. Pittsfield Township has a contract with a preferred hauler where they say they got a good price. It's offered up to all the residents, but you don't have to use it. So when you're in the city of Ann Arbor, you have to use City of Ann Arbor service. But if you're in Pittsfield, you can use this preferred hauler, which got a better price because they were, had more households bundled together. You get a lower, typically you get a lower price because you got more households, more business going on. And so people can choose that. If they don't want to, they can choose from the open market. They can choose anybody to come, whoever provides service in their neck of the woods, they can hire, and then they can go from there. I'm not as confident that when there's a preferred hauler system, that like for example Pittsfield Township, I don't think they're contracting separately for disposal. I think they're just relying on the company that they have the arrangement with. I could be wrong, but I don't have any evidence of that. So with subscription services, that's, every man for himself, literally, every household for themselves. You get to pick who your hauler is, you get to pick usually your level of service, and so the individual household isn't saying, I want my stuff to go to Arbor Hills, or I want my stuff to go to Woodland Meadows, or I want my stuff to go to City of Ann Arbor Murph. It's pretty much the hauler, the service provider, already has an arrangement where they're taking that material. It's built into your bundled price, and you don't have to worry about it. I think here it was a big question mark of what's actually going on. I think I need to take a visit to Augusta Township, because I think they said they have a contract, and then we looked up and then they don't have a contract, and then they have a different contractor for their drop-off. So we need to verify that, that's why they're blue. So that's there. So that's, where does your stuff go, and who decides where your stuff goes? So before I go to the next slide, any questions on that? Yes?
So what you're speaking of is municipal contracts or agreements and residential?
Yes.
Does the same thing apply to commercial?
From what I understand with commercial, most of the time, I would say like individual businesses don't say I want my, don't have a separate contract for disposal. I don't even think, Dave, I don't know, or Paul from Waste Management, I don't think bigger businesses, or I don't know, some of our industrial folks, do you say where you go?
Usually, you go out and, you bid out to the book of business, and then your service provider will come in. Oftentimes in the RFP, you make conditions that you want met, like version, confidential paper, recycling, paper, plastics, whatever, and then the service provider will come in, bid on the business, and then you award the contract, basically.
So, because you're representing a hospital, just for the benefit of our group, or you work at a hospital and you're representing them as well as a large generator, you wouldn't put out typically a separate contract for disposal in addition to collection, or you would? Or it just depends, is what you're saying?
No, it's usually all together, because you want to be able to deal with the single point of contact with the service provider.
Yeah, I can feel that. Any difference on U of M side?
Pretty much exactly the same.
Okay.
With some nuances for
Right.
specific colleges that have interests in their stuff going to a particular place.
That's a good term, I think.
The different businesses have different stuff that
Right,
they have to get
yes.
rid of, and they might have different recycling streams as well.
Right.
Or specialized waste streams like regulated medical waste, or chemotherapy waste, or hazardous chemical waste.
Yeah, but typically I would say, just like what's local here, y'all drove by the McDonald's. I don't think McDonald's is getting a separate contract for disposal and collection. I think it's a make it go away situation of please pick this up and we don't want to see it again, and it'll be full tomorrow, so we'll see you then. So,
I do
yes?
think one exception is City of Ann Arbor does have a solid waste franchise agreement that does require, at least via ordinance, that businesses work through the city's selected vendor for the collection of waste in an ongoing way. Some exceptions are made. It's loosely enforced currently, but it's on the books as a franchise operation, so all commercial waste is supposed to go through one hauler in the community. So that is done,
Yes,
at
thank
least
you
in
for
Ann
explaining
Arbor's
that.
case.
Yep, John?
Is Washtenaw County gonna be moving towards a more consolidated waste management program? Or are we going to just Or are we going to be trying to get some organization in Washtenaw County as to some of the rules and regulations that would apply to almost all facilities?
That's what you're here for. That's what we're deciding. That's what we're
Well,
talking
I
about.
can see a need for that at this point.
Save that thought for goals and objectives, because that's exactly the kind of thing that we would include in goals and objectives, and then also look at execution of how's that gonna happen once we set the goals and objectives.
But, so to piggyback off of that, is it within our power or whatever to propose resolutions?
No, I think what you can do is put goals and objectives in the plan, approve the plan, so it's whatever's in the plan is what you're proposing. Then there's a whole execution of the plan, that would come after this. So you're not the executing body, you are the planning body. And so, like for the last plan, we were just talking about the other day, is that the last plan, as a follow-up, 2 committees were formed after the plan, and it was I think a commercial recycling one.
And a residential
And a
task force.
residential. And given, this was commercial recycling in 2000, which was totally different than it is now, so it was very much up and coming. So yeah, both of those task forces were set up after the plan was approved to help execute then the goals of the plan. So I think when we get into the goals and objectives later, I think we're gonna have to be careful about what's a goal and then what's execution. So I'll just plant that seed for now, because I think we've all got great ideas and we need to figure out which ones will be in the plan and then what are we gonna execute on.
Because the end game is the county has to approve it. And if we say that Waste Management's gonna get all the recyclables in the county, that's how we word it in the plan, they, obviously, the county commissioners may not like that.
Yeah.
And we can't do that.
Paul would, however.
He'd be good, alright. Alright,
We could recommend the fact that maybe an ordinance would be something that people should look into, so we can be as prescriptive as something like that, but not create said ordinance.
Encourage looking into
Correct.
right.
cooperation.
Language.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think some of that language exists today. That's the consortium, I think, is a outcome of that meets on a every other month basis, I think, or quarterly basis. So you can see that the plan is, there's action items on that, and there's people.
We have approached it on the local basis, on the township level, but by writing RFPs and getting bids back. However, it's up to their board to pass a resolution accepting those contracts that would come in, and we have not yet had a municipality vote to approve a contract. So we've thrown it out there, we've presented it, and we've done our homework, but the execution by the municipality, it was up to them, and they did not follow through with it.
All right, anything else on stuff and where it goes? Well, why be technical when you can just kind of work out of it? Nobody wants to hear you say this stuff and all that boring stuff. Okay, this was also in the data slides that were sent out after the last meeting for you to help you do your homework. And it was one of the questions raised by the committee. Where are the facilities? What are they doing in the county? So these are approximate locations, because it's hard to put this out on a map. So like, for example, the bluish stars are drop-offs. I didn't put exactly where it is within that township. It's just noting that there's a drop-off in that area. Obviously, I know where the city of Ann Arbor MRF is, so I could put the star there pretty easily. So this is an overview. Dave, I didn't put a MRF for advanced disposal. So, is that a do you take residential, or is it processing more?
Commercial.
Commercial, okay. That might be why it's not on the radar.
That's what I was gonna ask you, if
Okay.
you wanted, I would assume that you want commercial, just to have,
Yes,
I mean,
yeah,
we
we want
want
that
that.
information, but, so that's why it's not on there. And then, so you can see we have 2 residential MRFs in the county, and we'll add Dave's commercial. So the WWRA facility that you heard about earlier, and then the city of Ann Arbor. You got a couple of compost sites, that's the brown stars, so you've got Chelsea, you got one out in Salem Township. Ipsy and Ipsy Township each have their own site, and then City of Ann Arbor has a site. And these were pulled from DEQ registered composting facilities. Drop-offs, there's quite a few of them in the county. it's a good chance if you're on the western side of the county that those are probably, you're probably a member of WWRA and you have drop-off locations from them. It's not everybody, but that's a safe bet, to generalize. And then even places that have availability of curbside or have actual curbside also have drop-offs, like Ipsy, Ipsy Township, the drop-off station in Ann Arbor. I don't know if that one is out onto the west side of town, and then in Dexter as well.
It's Albert's?
Yes,
The
thank you.
recovery yard.
Thank you. It's good I put that together. So that's kind of what we have in the county as far as facilities and, types of, and trash transfer station is in Chelsea too. I forgot that color. And then the landfill is advanced disposal up in Salem Township. So that's a snapshot of facilities within the county. So,
Are the compost facilities in Ipsy still available? Just want to make sure, YC Way, we can double check that.
I can double check that. They submitted their paperwork back, so when we did the facility description outreach, so I didn't read it personally though, so I can double check on that.
You should add, Ann Arbor does have a trash transfer station as well.
Okay,
So that should be.
Yeah.
thank you. Let me write that down. I turned it so I can look that up. Thank you. Okay, so that's Washtenaw County. What does the rest of the region look like? So I just wanted to show, you remember we were talking about where stuff goes. And so this looks a little chaotic, but it was probably, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to show this picture. So this is the regional flow of waste to landfills in the region, like I said. The map was pulled from the DEQ. Type 2 and type 3 landfills are dictated. I'm totally blanking on the difference between type 2 and type 3, so I'm pointing to Dave.
MSW is type 2.
Thank you.
Similar to Arbor Hills, type 3 is a construction demolition, can only take inert waste.
Thank you.
Jackson, the Liberty landfill in Jackson.
Yes, yes. So the red dots are where MSW can go. So, and then the list of facilities those are all kind of facilities, not all kind of, they are facilities in the SEMCOG area, if you will, and beyond. Not all these counties are part of SEMCOG, but in the Southeast Michigan area. So the size of the arrow indicates how much is going to a particular place. So all the red is where stuff going to Arbor Hills. So you can see from Washtenaw County, and just to clarify, because we clarified this in our planning meeting, is that in our earlier data slides that were from DEQ reports that all the landfills are required to do, 40% of Washtenaw County's waste goes to the Arbor Hills landfill. Washtenaw County makes up 10% of the total of what goes to Arbor Hills. So it's not 10% of Washtenaw County's waste going to Arbor Hills, it's actually 40%. We just make up a small portion of what actually goes to Arbor Hills. And those arrows, that's what it's telling you. Obviously, Oakland and Wayne County take up more space, I think was a way to say it, in Arbor Hills landfill. Let's see, other places stuff goes, the kind of brownish color is Carlton Farms, actually. No, that's not right.
Pine Tree Acres.
Yeah, Pine Tree.
Excuse me, can you say, repeat, for 40% go to the Arbor, where's the location?
Arbor Hills?
Arbor
Salem
Hills, which
Township.
means in the Northville area, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's too bad.
All the colors switched when I moved the slide, so I apologize. So the dark one, so there's Woodland Meadows, which is that's that color. I'm gonna get it right here so I can point to it.
Yes.
This is Woodland Meadows. So you can see, I think more like 50-some% from Washtenaw goes to Woodland Meadows. So-
Primarily the city of Ann Arbor.
Yes. And then other places that it goes, the dark brown is Carlton Farms, this is Sauk Hills, these are all just owned by different companies. So you can just see, so I wanted to show this of like how stuff flows regionally, it goes all over. So you've got stuff from Macomb County coming all the way over to Arbor Hills. You've got stuff from Macomb County going down into Wayne County, into the Detroit area. So, and that has to deal with who's making deals where. You probably have customers up here, Advanced Disposal.
Primarily south of Macomb to Sickert.
Okay, so I'm putting too high, but yeah, so they're coming here. You know, one of the big waste haulers in this area is Rizzo Services. They're taking, I'm gonna guess they're taking their stuff there, or they're sending it over to Canada. Well, they send their recyclables to Canada. So that's just a regional snapshot of waste, so you can see where stuff flows. Then I have,
Is this public available for that?
this will be
slide?
posted after the meeting is over,
Okay.
within, what's the, 8 days. So this is then a snapshot of regional waste, recycling, and compost facilities, just to give you a snapshot of where else could stuff go, what capacity is out there, and how do things move. So, so let's just point out again to get our bearings. We've got Western Washtenaw, we've got City of Ann Arbor MRFs, we've got compost sites, Ypsilanti, got City of Ann Arbor, which can also take food waste. This is Advanced Disposal right here. You have Tut Hill Farms.
Which is more Livingston, just so you know.
Yeah, this was hard to do. Yeah, Tut Hill Farms, yeah, should probably be right here. You have Duncan Disposal, which is a service provider, which I actually think operates in this part of Wayne County. And so they have a small MRF as well. This one, and this one are all owned by Recommunity. And then this one is SACRA, which is a regional authority in Oakland County, and I just put it there to show there's capacity, but they actually only take it from their 12-member communities, so it's not really an option, but just to show that. Then, like I mentioned, Rizzo, who does a lot of work over here, they actually send their recyclables to Canada, so I don't even know where they are, and they weren't on the map, but that's what that stands for. So this is kind of the overview of how things happen in Southeast Michigan.
You know, I think it's important for the conversation, but I believe you're missing the Macomb County composting facilities. And up into other, maybe even into the pier.
I didn't go that high, but Macomb could be in there for sure.
Macomb needs to be in there, and the reason I say that is because if we get into conversation about sustainability and food waste, then I think the board needs to understand where the yard waste is going.
Excuse me, I apologize for interrupting. Speaking of the capacity, is the capacity strictly used for Michigan communities, or is the capacity allocated to the out-of-state as well?
Just to keep order, these are good questions and I appreciate it, but if you could just hold that question, there will be a chance for a public comment when we get further into the meeting today, and we'll be sure to address that in follow-up to that public comment. But in order to keep this under control, if people could just hold public comments and questions until that point in the agenda, would appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
Great, thank you.
But having heard that, could we just address it at this point?
I'm sorry.
Outside stuff, I have a question. Outstate
So
stuff.
much for the keep the order.
Well, you know Nancy, she's trouble.
So that's what we need to do, other questions to shove this somebody.
All right, so it depends, basically. There's lots of rules about how things can flow and what can't go where, but what you need to remember is Advanced Disposal, Waste Management, Republic Services, Rizzo, all these different companies that I'm mentioning, they're private companies. So if they own a facility, they want to utilize that facility. So they are going to get contracts and get the business because their business is either a landfill or a recycling facility. So stuff can flow from Canada. I don't have the numbers of how much that really is anymore. I think at one point there was a huge influx, and that was a major news topic here in our state. But you know, recyclables are going over to Canada as well. So it really just depends. For municipal facilities, like I mentioned, SACRA, they're a public entity, they're a public authority. They own a MRF on behalf of their members, and they only take their members' recyclables and trash, and they provide services on behalf of that. So, yes, sir.
I don't want to create a unrecognizable number of categories, but it seems to me it is important to note in the future, which of these various facilities are publicly owned versus privately owned, because I do think that impacts some of the decision-making that.
On the recyclable side primarily, or all?
Yeah, and all, I mean, I don't think there's any publicly owned landfill now, so that wouldn't be an issue, but for compost sites and
City of
recycling sites.
City of Riverview.
Which, yeah, so I guess there is one location
The
that,
target's the Riverview.
yeah, but I think that would be helpful to,
Sure.
if
I
you
would
could do that
prefer
creatively.
I would actually prefer to provide it in list form. It gets
Okay.
complicated to
Yeah.
create icons and colors, and I'm sure half this room's like, that's way too small, I can't see it, so
Yeah.
if I could provide a list, I'd be really,
Okay, that's
I'd be
fine.
happy to do that.
That's fine.
Okay.
Great.
I don't mean to make you repeat yourself, but what was the compost facility that's already in food waste that is just in?
It should be Livingston.
It's
That's,
in-
Tut Hill Farms.
Tottenham Farms. Okay, thanks.
And I wanted to make sure we showed those because I've heard food waste come up in our solid waste, in our SWOT analysis. I've seen food waste come up in the goals and objectives that people had submitted ahead of time, so.
And the reason why I want to add the Macomb ones is because they're shutting them down.
Are they showing up?
I mean, they've shut one down, the other one is very taxed, and not shutting that one down, so I don't want to start moving around, so I don't.
Is it the one that always has
But
problems?
it's just, it's, for the sake
Yeah,
of conversations about
yeah.
composting where it's going, I think we need to.
Yeah. I guess I would say it wouldn't go there, but after we saw that other map, you never know.
You never know.
So, that's a good point. I will add that to there, and I'll create a list form, to show, publicly versus privately owned.
So on your, the regional flow one
Mhm.
that you had earlier, did you look at issues of capacity when you were looking at those flows within the region?
No, it was just to show, it wasn't the point to show capacity, the point was to show how materials flow throughout the region. And so I would have to go back and look up all that information. We just pulled it from DEQ, annual reports. So I don't know, do you do capacity on your landfills when you have to do your DEQ annual reports? Okay, so I can pull that up.
Yeah, because I think at some point, if we're gonna be looking at that, we need to know, you know, I think it's great that you looked at the flow, but now we need to look at, I've had my people look at it, and we've got 20 years.
Not to
so-
put Dave on the spot, but I didn't get his paperwork back. So I don't know
I
what his,
deserve it.
I don't know
Deserve
how
being
his,
on spot.
I don't know the capacity question, because that's the landfill we have to ensure has capacity for the purposes of the plan. You don't have to ensure it if it's outside of the county, but there's, language that says if you want to, you can go ahead, but it's not a required step of the planning process. So I just need Dave's stuff,
Yes, ma'am.
or I'll pull it from
No, I
the
heard
DEQ
that.
site, but I think if you can fill out our facility description stuff. I know you got a plan.
My apologies to
No
the
problem.
board.
But I think what I was hearing you say, Amy, was that you're also interested in capacity, in addition to the fact that we now know where things are going around here, but regional capacity, even having.
Yeah. I can provide the link to the DEQ site, that would be the quickest and easiest way to get that information out to everybody. So let's do that.
Would it be possible just to date the prior flow description and say that's based on data from either this year or period of years?
Mhm.
I think that would be helpful.
Yep, okay, so I'm done with the regional overview part, any other questions?
So on to goals and objective development.
Okay, I'm ready. All right, so first of all, thank you to 5 of the solid waste committee members who provided some material ahead of time, very helpful. And we're gonna use that as our basis for our conversation tonight. So, as I said, remember you had homework and we had homework, so I wanted to make sure I talked about the homework that we did, because you guys did your homework. So, a glossary of terms was asked for at the last meeting. I found one and posted it on the share file. So it's from a book on solid, if you can imagine, there's a book on solid waste management, and that's the glossary. The EPA used to have a great glossary, and it's not on their website anymore, so I couldn't use that one, so we found another one. The facility map, which we just went over, that was also done. And then we wanted to know more about the 6 elements model that we went through. Remember that was, it's right here. 6 key components of effective municipal recycling programs. So we wanted to, again, slice and dice our information that we have and see how it compared to this model. So I took a stab at that. I might need a little more information from you guys, at least one of them, but I thought we could go over that and then we'll get into goals and objectives. So, first key component was collection. So I've got collection, processing, and end markets on here. I provided some details, and then I did again, it's RS's review of Washtenaw County, did a ranking of high, moderate, or low, meaning it's hitting the mark if it's high, low it's not, it could be better, it could be improved. So collection, I think, is high. 67% of the county population are covered by contracted or city-provided services. So curbside is available. We believe people are using it. It's easier when it's just there and people don't have to add on to a service, or people get turned off when there's an additional charge for a service if you're a subscription provider or a subscription user. So I would say collection's pretty high. I'll ask the group, how do you guys feel? Is that fair assessment? Okay. Processing, high. You've got to, unfortunately we're having all this news about what's going on in Ann Arbor, but you do have a MRF here in Ann Arbor. It's owned by the city. But you saw there's lots of other facilities in the region that accept recyclables. Interestingly enough, they're primarily owned by one company, but they're single stream. Two of them are pretty, state-of-the-art facilities. One they just rebuilt because they had a fire that burnt down the facility. I don't know, 2 years ago now. So I would say high. You've got the capacity. Oh, and I forgot WWRA. That's my oversight. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Thank God Frank's not here. Don't tell Frank, I'll fix the slide. And then end markets. So I struggle with this one. I think it's, the purpose of it in the model is to make sure that if you're collecting something, you have some place for it to go. And so right now, the way the markets are, they're really not great. And so it's not necessarily something the county can control. But, so I said they're just not ideal. So I'm just saying low because right now end markets are not good. And so everybody's questioning recycling. Everybody's questioning, what are we supposed to do with these materials? So I indicated low for right now. I could change it to moderate because it's kind of then in the middle because you don't really have control over that. But that was our perspective on that. So comments or questions on that one? Dave? I can see you're talking before you're talking. So.
I'm looking for our board, I'm looking at this going, okay, what can we control? What can we influence in this plan? And to me, obviously we can't control, it's hard to control end markets like you said. Pricing is a little bit also, we can make it more accessible, I guess, but how do you get a processing coming?
Right.
It's the collection side of that, or at least our goals of concentrating on collection. Is that?
I would say that's fair.
If we're looking for goals, that's what we want to try to, that's why I'm assuming that you would want to get some ideas on the table.
Right. And I would say for end markets, because I've seen, based on what people have provided, and even what the gentleman from WWRA said is, how do we work together to kind of combat some of this or reduce some of the impact of bad markets? So I think that's suitable under a plan scenario or county intergovernmental working and all that kind of, or public-private partnerships. But you're right, I agree with what you said, Dave, absolutely. Okay. All right, so education and engagement, sadly low. It's hit or miss. So we did these community profiles, right? We sent out, hey, communities, tell us what you're doing, and we asked specifically about education and engagement. I got 4 responses, and they're all over the board. So I got the city of Ann Arbor saying they pay about $3 a household. I'm going to say per year. I don't think they actually just said that. Pittsfield Township has like, 2 cents per household. Okay, better than nothing. City of Saline sends out a quarterly residential newsletter. And then Superior Township has a 30% per household paid by the hauler. So I'm assuming that means, that they pay for that and then it's on the hauler to send out materials or information. So that's what we can document from just like a straight up service providing. You have services, are you being educated about them? What we do know is the county, we know the city, we know there's Recycling Ann Arbor, there's groups out there doing education. But if it's not happening, you know, if it's not happening in the community and understanding what it, you know, not even, people don't even know where to find information, even though you think you go to a website. Sometimes it's not easy to find the solid waste program that's about 25 clicks into, you know, a city website or a township website. So I'm gonna say it's low. It can be improved on. I think from all of the stuff we've done in the SWAT and what you guys have sent as far as goals and objectives, I think education is gonna be one of the big ones. So any other comments or maybe information that's not captured here that we should be aware of as part of this discussion? Nancy?
Well, maybe for education, people aren't thinking what they're actually doing. And maybe just an idea, if they're sending another survey out at some point when we envision this, like have you got things on the web? Have you got programs in the schools? Do you
Best
have,
practices.
you know, identify some of those key things. Yeah, that's real easy to do. And sometimes the web people, they're not, their time and their money isn't necessarily billed against the solid waste budget, but it's happening. And then there's also these great partnerships, like U of M is doing great education with all the incoming students coming in, and their on-site recycling stations in every building, that all of that kind of permeates the culture. So I'm not exactly sure how to capture that, but I'd be really sad if that ends up being what our report says as our status. Because we can do better, I know, but we're not that bad, I'm sure, as a
Yeah,
community.
I disagree with Lowell. I don't know, maybe I'm just too outside of it, but what the county does and what the Ann Arbor does and what the school systems do, I don't see education engagement as low. Moderate if you wanna be,
Okay.
at least that's my opinion.
I often wonder in those areas of the county that are relying on subscription services, you know, are they even being offered the opportunity, and are the haulers or suppliers giving those residents information and education? I noticed that northern tier of townships don't even have any drop-off stations, so, you know, what's going on up there? I mean, is there any education reaching them where people know where, even if they're subscribed, they can't subscribe for residential recycling, can at least know where they can take it and drop it off somewhere, so. So I think they're real strong. I'm thinking like in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area, Chelsea, you know, western Washtenaw, but in other, and I know there's a lot of work being done in the school districts, but, you know, what's going on with residents in the rural areas of the county?
Does the low rating include all the things that the county does?
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm taking it from feedback that we got from our public information survey that said people, they're just not aware of county programs, and so they're using some of them, and they're not aware of all of them. And so, sorry, county, but that's what the public said. So I was listening to that feedback as part of this.
Well, I think there's a way of saying awareness versus availability, you know, so, right.
Kirk, did you have your hand up?
Well, I was wondering if, you know, maybe those are two different components. You can educate like crazy, but not achieve any engagement that gets you towards your goals. So maybe they're two different slices of the pie rather than being lumped into two different things. You know, is engagement participation, or is it somebody read my flyer?
Well, because all the subscription haulers throw out, you know, they do have the availability of the bin or the extra tote to put stuff in. And most, if not all, have little pamphlets and they educate what they can put in there and not put in there. So they have that education, you know. Is it the encouragement and engagement is the, or the kick in the rear end is the question.
Let me
Well,
just-
I also,
I just want to pipe in.
Sure.
We've been surveying our home toxics participants for years, and we get about, by the amount of households, over about 3 to 4% household participation rate in a year. Nationwide, if you get 2%, you're doing good. So it's who needs the service when, and how do they have availability to get the service? So they don't always have tires, they don't always have refrigerators, or they don't always have paint. But with our transient community of 2 universities, we get a lot more because movers don't move it, and so I think we have a better participation rate based on the need of the community versus others around the country. So we do a pretty good participation rate if you compare it nationally.
Well, you know, since the last solid waste plan, there's been all sorts of information, resource, and education stuff that's been developed at the county, that's all up on the website. I often wonder how many people visit that, how many people use it, do you have counters on the website? I mean, I'd be curious to know if that's being effective.
And then the other thing to consider is looking at the back end at the MRFs, all the materials that they are receiving, and there is a lot of contamination. So there comes a point where we can push as much education out as we can. But if people aren't reading it and being engaged by it, then we're going to have the problem. So I don't know if you all are familiar with the term wishful recycling, but lots of times people have this mentality in their brain that if I put this item, a bowling ball, a deer head, in the recycle bin, then it'll suddenly magically get recycled, and that's not the case. So if you talk to Frank, or if you talk to the Ann Arbor MRF, you'll see that there's lots of unacceptable items being processed through those facilities.
Well, what's more important, getting more volume or better volume?
Quality.
Quality
versus
that's
quality.
the grand question. We can arm wrestle that one, I think, another time, but, oh, yes, Megan, sorry.
When you mentioned the survey in terms of getting some of the metrics for the low rating, did you get a chance to look at the updated survey count recently?
250.
Because we did a big, huge plug.
Which was,
recent mailer.
on Monday night when I was putting together this stuff, it was 199, so in a matter of a couple days, I've gotten that more. So it just went out to Western Washtenaw Authority, as part of their billing, so it was a prompt, I'm sorry?
Yeah, with their assessment amount.
With their assessment amount. Oh, happy. So I haven't looked at the comments yet, but I'm fully expecting some unhappy comments around assessment. Yeah,
Just
Andy.
real quick, I just wanted to kind of build on what Pierre said. I think education engagement is high in our municipalities in the county, in our school systems in the county, but in the rural areas of the county, it's low. And I don't know how, what the responsibility is or what the most effective way is to engage that population. But from an environmental perspective, which I think, we're all here for, you talk about people living in rural areas in our county, out in the country, they don't get on websites and stuff like that, so how do we engage that population so they're not taking it all back to their burn pile and, behind their barn, because that stuff still is very prevalent.
Yeah.
And I know a large farming community, and that's how they've done it for years, and that's how they still do it. So from my perspective, it's not about what's going on in Saline or Dexter or Chelsea, it's out in the rural areas, and like Pierre said, how do you engage that population?
And then that goes back to that map that Anna showed, where the rural communities are generally the single, or each home for their own. So there's gonna be varying, maybe expectations, household to household, so it'll be difficult.
They don't know where to drop off.
Yeah.
They simply don't know where what their opportunities are.
Yeah.
Recycle Ann Arbor gets hired by some of the rural townships to do cleanup events, 1 or 2 times a year. Those are heavily utilized. So I think what you're seeing might be more because of accessibility, right? If we're only out there once or twice a year, what am I gonna do with all these tractor tires in the meantime? I'm not gonna store them, I'm not gonna, So I think from an engagement standpoint, it might actually be pretty good. The issue is there's no mechanism for doing something on a more routine and needed basis.
That's conveniently located and accessible.
Right. Because when we're conveniently located with a bunch of roll-off containers, in Lodi Township, oh man.
I bet you have people calling a year in advance knowing when you're gonna come back, and they
Oh,
get it
yeah,
on their calendar.
it's publicized at
Yeah.
the beginning of the year when the dates are gonna be.
Well, I'll just argue the one point of, education versus engagement, and they need to be together because they're related, and so, to what Dave pointed out about, if you sign up with the hauler, you get the flyer. You get that flyer once. That's it. So what if you lose the flyer? Where do you go for information? Who's telling you you're doing it right? Where, so engage, it's all together. You can't just do a flyer and be done with it. You can't, a website's, there's a couple things. It's having a variety of different ways to reach people, because everybody pays attention to a different type of media. Some people read newspapers, some people go online, some people want alerts sent to their phone. I mean, there's all those different ways, and so you have to be, it has to be consistent and regular, and helpful for people. So I always say the one and done doesn't work. Oh, we got that flyer done. Okay, we're good. We don't have to do it again. No, you do. And you have to do it again soon. And you have to tell people where it is. And you have to tell them how to find it. You have to tell them how to get to you. And so,
What's the thing, you have to hear it 3 times, 3 different ways for
Right.
it to sink in?
Right.
Education,
Right.
engagement.
right.
What was that?
Please don't do that. All right.
Put it up on the
Good.
screen.
I think that's,
So
any other?
it sounds like, to kind of
Yeah.
draw
keep us
this
going.
to a close, moderate with maybe just a little more explanation about kind of the pros and the challenges of what is happening currently on education and engagement. Is that a fair way to put it?
I think it should be low. I was out in Seattle just a couple weeks ago, and recycling is in your face everywhere. And you look in the recycle bins that are compostable, recyclable, and trash, landfill. And you look inside, and there's about the same amount of the same material in each one. People don't get it, so it's understanding, it's education, sending the flyer out, even having it posted above each one of the bins doesn't do enough. It's getting it, getting the message, getting the knowledge. So you can educate all you want, but until you really get the message and practice it the right way, it's low. So I would contend that it is low.
So you're
I would
getting
contend
right
that
into.
Seattle is low.
You're getting right into
Even though their
supporting
education-
policy. You're getting right into supporting policy, because what makes Seattle programs, is they have supporting policy to back it up.
Right.
And they have trained people, and they have to follow a certain rule. So I'll go to policy if you just want to respond to that, Brian, or.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, I don't want to lose that there are a lot of positive things happening already within the county, within
We all
individual
know that.
communities and in the county.
Yeah.
And I don't want that lost by just giving us a low score, so,
Well, the fact that the county's not even full into that.
and the county's efforts should be mentioned in some
Okay.
fashion, yeah.
And remember, all these pieces work together. So you can't, if you have, you could have really good collection, but all these other pieces, if they're not working, then the system doesn't work as well. So to your point, Seattle's got great policies in place that enforce all of this stuff in a variety of different ways. It is just the way of life. And so our supporting policies are different. We don't have a very strong state effort. We do right now because the governor is engaged and wants to see increased recycling, but that's the first time in a long time. And so we have state policies that enforce kind of the behavior that we have, which is yard waste ban. So we separate yard waste. It gets composted. It doesn't need to be in the landfill. And then there's local policies. So you got the City of Ann Arbor commercial recycling ordinance. You've got pay as you throw that's going on in Chelsea. And so
Recent product stewardship policy that passed for plastic bags.
yes.
Right.
So how can I forget that? I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
So you need some of that. So I'd say it's moderate only because you got something, but could a lot more be done? Sure, if you want to be like Seattle, go for it. Now, our policy is always well received, not all the time. I was telling Jeff ahead of the meeting, I did read some of the comments that we're getting in from the Chelsea folks, and they're like, "Stop forcing recycling down my throat." That was the exact quote of somebody who provided feedback. So not everybody likes it. But the benefit of pay as you throw is you only pay for what you're actually throwing away. That's the charge you get. So if you're incentivized to recycle more, that's why he doesn't want it forced down his throat. But it's a money savings.
Sorry, on policies, do you wanna add the governor's recycling plan as an example,
We could.
or?
I don't think it's having a necessarily. Here's my pessimistic view is that he's going to be done next year, and then we're not going to talk about recycling at the state level for some time. So we can certainly add it there, though.
Cause I guess it's trying to understand if you mean regulation and policy. So policy doesn't have to be a regulation, it can just be a guiding principle.
Yes.
Right, so
Yeah, and
these
then,
are all regulations.
yes, they are. I mean, but it's something that's it's in place and it's impacting behavior. I wouldn't say the governor is saying we want to do 30% by whatever year he said. We're not all jumping to that. We're here and we could jump to that, but it's more voluntary, I guess, versus.
There's been policies that have been born out of that, so there's the legislation for metrics reporting, right?
Mhm.
That was basically sort of incentivized by the governor's recycling initiative. So there's that, and there's state policies too.
and this is for municipal, it impacts municipal as well, not overall. John?
I don't know, I'm a low for policy, just because of what I've seen out there. You get on the internet and surf, and, I mean, the reason I brought up resolutions, I turned up so many resolutions about zero waste policy, and, I just think, well, I'll leave it at that.
And is this, what are we comparing this to? Are we moderate as Washtenaw County?
Yeah.
We're looking at it, not
Yeah.
relative to all counties in the US or all counties in Michigan, or?
No, it's strictly just, how do you, from our experience in using this in other municipalities, where do we think you put on the spectrum? So, and taking the data that we have, again, I mean, we can, we don't have all the time in the world, I guess, to get real deep. And so if we did, then we can talk about that, but this is kind of based on what we've gathered. How can we again, and this is all the same information you've already looked at 3 different ways. This is the 4th way you're looking at it, so, yeah.
I understand there's very little reason to debate whether it's a 1, 2, or 3 rating, in this kind of a model, but do you think it would help if, for instance, there are really nice graphics that you had about flow and all that, if we understood the population density for each one of the townships? Because here you're putting city of Ann Arbor, well, okay, it might be incredibly high, it might be high, it averages out to be moderate, and that represents X population or X percentage of the county. Would that help put things in perspective?
You have population density as part of the data that was provided in April.
Okay.
And then, that's, to give you a rating on collection, where, it's the densely populated areas are the ones that are primarily covered by contracted, so we're using that information, I guess, is what I want to respond to.
So it'll be in a data pack for April?
Yes.
And I think that is included in the slide there on the website, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we can pull those out if you want to. I just don't, I'm not on my computer, I'm on the county's computer, otherwise I will bring it up. So, public-private partnerships, I couldn't think of any. So I was gonna ask you guys, what am I missing? Because we didn't really, that's not something we asked about in our community profiles, it's not information we've been gathering data on, so, I'm trying to think of examples of what that might be, but something where you're seeing, those kinds of partnerships that just help, leverage what's going on in a community, what the resources can be brought to bear to kind of improve things, to make things better, to divert more.
Does the consortium qualify for that?
Do you have private folks on there, or is it just public folks?
Private and
Yeah, we've got private.
Do you? Oh, because you're on it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pierre. You're not a community, you're, yeah. All right,
And
Wixom.
then the other thing, this is a small new program, but the county has partnered with Amcor Rigid Plastics, as well as Recycling Arbor, sort of a triage to develop a zero waste events initiative, which has been
Excellent.
very successful so far.
Excellent. That's a great example.
And then what about the marina recycling? It's working directly with the marina for the boat.
So that'd be Washtenaw County and Great Lakes Recycling.
Awesome.
Does the waste time works and all that?
Yeah, actually, yeah,
Pharmaceutical take-back program?
yeah.
So, it's not low.
Recycling Arbor, City of Ann Arbor,
Right,
Mhm.
right.
recycling partnership for drop-off curbside programs,
Recycling the county.
recycling Arbor in the county.
Oh, I wasn't.
Please read this down.
I can.
Okay. I could.
You can help read.
Up until last Friday, City of Ann Arbor and Community.
Yeah, that was the one I was gonna put there, and then I
Yeah.
saw the news article, so I didn't do that. Great, thank you for that. I was trying to come up. So, okay, so ignore the scores. So when Jim Fry was here last time and he said, ideally you're gonna you wanna be strong on all, but ideally you wanna at least be strong on 4 of the 6. You don't wanna be strong just in one. That's it's all connected. So by counting up the highs, I counted 2 highs, so your score is 2 out of 6. With some of the switching on low to moderate, maybe we'll say 3 out of 6 and just kind of balance it out a little bit. So we're getting there, but here's where this segues into. setting goals and objectives. Yes,
Can I
Nancy?
just add to, I was listening to what people were saying about education engagement, and I guess there's some benefit to giving it a low rating, because that's one of those classic low-hanging fruits that people can easily respond to. It is something that's embarrassing for the county to say. There's a lot of area for, I mean, countywide, for us to say, there's so much more we could do in that area. And hopefully that would encourage us to look at that as we look at its objectives of things we want to accomplish. So, from being sad to seeing it there and asking for moderate, I think there's some benefit and reality to continuing to say low.
You know,
Well, I have a comment on that. I mean, when I look at it as a region,
Yeah.
you're way more than most. So it just depends on who you're looking against, you know, and comparing to, but, I mean, if you're gonna say you're low, that's like saying you're low on stormwater management, which is.
And I would say, I would be more apt to say moderate for education engagement and low on supporting policy. I think that we have room
Yeah.
to grow in that area, and I think
I
that would help
agree.
inform, some of the work that we're doing in education could be in furtherance of the policy piece. And I know we're going
I agree.
back and forth, but that's where I think we can go to drive that education and engagement even higher, because we need supporting policy to do that.
Our poor consultants.
no, you know what? You guys you're doing great. You are on fire today. I think that homework really did it. All right, no. All right, let's so remember, I think back in February or January, we showed you some peer communities and what they're doing. So we recategorized it to use that same model, use the same headers, and kind of see where everybody lines up. So, so clearly you've got some that are doing pretty good. And then some that, according, to the Jim Fry standard of 4 out of 6 being good, you've got some that are below that. So you got Dane County, which is Madison, Wisconsin. You've got, everyone else does a pretty good job. Ramsey County, Minnesota, they're firing on all pistols there, or pistons, sorry, pistols. So just to see where you compare versus these other folks. And then the check boxes were really to show, because you didn't have 4 out of 6, so I'm wondering why they're 4, but just to show that you had some things comparative to those folks. So all in all, just another way to slice and dice the data to get you ready for thinking about the future and how we want to lay this out in the plan document. And any questions on this before I go?
I noticed a lot of people make comments in the homework assignments about developing markets, because, it does seem like we're doing a lot of that, and we wanna recycle, collect all this material, but I don't know if we're doing anything to create demand for it as well, so.
Well, that's actually part of, hold on one sec, John, that's part of the governor's initiative is to increase that rate, you probably know more about this than I do, but to increase that rate, it's about the economic development side of this as well, and to bring businesses to Michigan that want the materials from us, and that's part of his initiative, aside from or related to getting communities to do more to increase that volume. We want to also bring in the financial end, the manufacturing end, the job component of all of this, and so that's, I think, as a state level thing, that's something that can be done. I think it's a little more challenging on a county level, unless you've got like a huge economic development group that's like recruiting businesses to come here and do that, but I don't think there necessarily is.
I wasn't so much thinking, that's one component of this, like developing the actual business of reclaiming and recycling and offering for sale, but just the little things, Washington County's done a lot of things like requiring certain, recycled content in their
Correct.
supplies and stuff. That's the little things like that.
Those
start
things
to create
can,
demand.
you're absolutely right. Yes, so sorry, yeah.
So there's creating demand, and then there's
Right.
market development.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I think that goes hand in hand with like product stewardship directed policies as well, where we tackle waste streams and consider end markets at the front of the front end versus the back end.
Yeah, I see it, we got all those places doing something in market, but we don't seem to be doing much of anything right there, or at least it's not on our, at least our evaluation doesn't show that.
Well, and so Minnesota is a pretty evolved state as far as recycling, and I mean, they've got a full-on state department that, guides activities of solid waste and recycling, so there's a difference there. Indiana has nothing. shopping, so I don't know whether they just might have businesses. And then you got Oregon, so that's again kind of higher on the green curve of doing good things. No, but you're absolutely right, and some of that did come through on the goals and objectives around the front end to what Noel was saying, and I think Kurt, it was in yours, of, you know, it's reduce, reuse, recycle. Recycle's the third R, and we could do the other two first, so. All right.
All right, so Anna, before you move into the goals and objectives, if we could just do a quick time check, what do you think is a reasonable time period to have finished with goals and objectives? To get us where we need to go, but not,
I would say an hour. So, if you would like to make it shorter, we can make it shorter, but I would say, what I'm gonna have you do is actually get up and walk around, so there'll be some of that, but we need to talk through some stuff first.
okay? Are people generally okay with that?
I could go for, how about I shoot for 40 minutes, we'll see what we get done and go from there.
Okay, that sounds great.
I knew that's what you were gonna want to say anyways.
A couple of pizzas will buy another 20 minutes.
I have one granola bar. Who's gonna fight me for it? I had pretzels for dinner, so.
You did mention that we would talk about it again in August too, so.
We will talk about it again in August. I wanna get through the bulk of it. You know, this is the nitty gritty. I mean, this is what we're here for.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the patience on the part of the public as well, because I think this is worthwhile conversation that will form some of your comments and opinions as well, so I appreciate people's patience in sticking with this process. All right, go ahead, Anna.
All right. So let me just see what my next slide was, so I can, okay. So your homework assignment, just to refresh, was you were looking at all the information that we talked about. I sent a whole bunch of other information, and then this was actually looking at the current goals and thinking about what should remain and what would you change and why. And then you were to come together to either bring draft goals and be ready to continue the discussion. So again, thank you for those who prepared stuff ahead of time. Some of it was shared with everybody. I don't think everybody's comments were with everyone. I printed out everything that I received. So in the 3 pieces of information I gave you, there's a packet of people's goals and objectives. And so what I want to do is, and I have the current goals here, so eventually what I would like to do is I think we should go through what people sent, maybe even take just a couple minutes to review it real quickly. I want to make sure we capture comments from people who didn't submit something ahead of time to make sure we're getting down what people are envisioning as goals. I want you to keep these questions in mind of, you know, what's important to you, what should be explored further, what are we missing. Then what I want to do is, you know, the dot priority thing. So everything that was sent to me ahead of time, I printed out on these extra large pieces of paper. So eventually we'll go around and you will prioritize what you think are important. And that's what I want to get through tonight. And then what I can do is take that information back and convert that into, here's what you told me, here's what a draft goals list would look like. So if we can get that done tonight, that would be awesome. And so we'll have you rank those, and you have the stuff in front of you. So I guess of those people who, again, didn't send anything, oh, and I just want to say, so I've got Marissa here from my team, that's Marissa. She's got a notepad with, so if you've got more stuff, we'll write it down and put that up too, so people can vote on your stuff as well. But that's really what I want to get through. And so, you know, if we want to even challenge ourselves to do it faster, I mean, I'm appreciative of the time. I just want to make sure this is a pretty critical part to the planning process, so I want to make sure that we get through that as well.
One question I have is, just glancing through, there's a lot of repeated comment. I mean, a lot of us have similar goals, and so were you able to, and I think the answer is probably no, but to distill those goals down into?
No, I didn't do that. I thought about it, and I didn't want to do it on purpose because I wanted people to see exactly what people submitted and what was important to them. And so, yeah, I probably could, and people did it in their own words, and I didn't want to assume or jump to conclusions about what somebody might be saying. So that might have sped it up. I know it might, and so that's what we'll do then at the end. If there's overlap, like you know somebody said reuse on one and somebody said reuse on another page, then we'll combine that. But I didn't want to take away from the fact that people put a lot of time and effort into this and came in their own words about what was important to them. some trends that I saw, I can point that out before we get into the discussion. So I'll pick on Pierre, because he sent his in first, like an awesome vice chair does. And Pierre's goals focused on areas of diversion. So he had residential, he had commercial, he had, it's all over there. But he had all commercial recycling, food composting, home composting, all those kinds of things. So he was looking at it from, he provided, these are the areas we should focus on and this is what we should support. Other people then who responded said, I agree with what Pierre said, and then provided other things. So taking it a step further about, truly what is things to think about more in a broader sense. So again, reduce, reuse, recycle, thinking about those first 2 R's. Thinking about habits and behaviors and how we change that, thinking about education, and so on. And then Nancy she did the most thorough, I think we need to hire her at our firm, she did this big table that's across the back in black. So Nancy, what did you do? You took everything that we had talked about and you created almost your own model using a couple of other models, and you compared the goals from the current plan, the goals from that document that was a 2004 Washtenaw County initiative, some other things and data that we talked about, and she sorted and organized it into the chart that I think is the last thing on there. So that's again why I didn't want to consolidate because people had put some.
Can we confer on her an honorary degree or something?
Yes.
And honestly, I don't think all of these things should stand at all. I just thought it was interesting to grab them, because we had all these pieces of paper and throw them all in there and see where the overlap might be.
My comment was primarily for like ranking and doing the dot exercise, was maybe spending the time coalescing and then ranking maybe would be more valuable.
Let me ask you this, would it be worthwhile like trying to coalesce this into a dot point, because like so much of it's repeated. And could we do have so many votes to do it offline, so we don't have to be here till 9, or? Or does it need to happen during the meeting?
I think we would,
Not up to me.
in terms of open meetings,
Yeah,
I
that's
think you would
open
have
meetings.
to, we could do some things offline in terms of, gathering and getting data together, and just like we did homework, and then we would share it again at the meeting. And say, is this, this is what we have, are there more feedback, and allow people to come in.
My biggest concern is, we got 5 out of 15 responses, and I think that's kind of a reality with offline assignments. So I'm a little concerned about what gets lost if we don't take the time to do it in a group process, even though it's a pain in the.
I agree that a group process is important. I'm not sure what's the right process to be effective. I don't know.
Right.
I know I didn't turn it in, and it was hard for me to think about reading what everybody else kept saying. Like, I couldn't keep up with all that, with all the emails. So I have things I could say right now that we could, that maybe other people, that we could have a list of things that we all kind of agree on that we wanted them. But I think it would be difficult tonight for me to read all of this stuff and rank stuff tonight, let alone have the other 10 people or whoever's here that didn't say get some things said.
We actually got so many dot points that it was dilute the, but somebody might put on something else, hey, encourage commercial recycling over here and then do it over there, and I don't know.
Well, that's where we could do that. So here's what I would suggest. Let's get everybody's comments who didn't provide feedback yet, and then we'll end this portion of the meeting. And then we will take it back and we'll make a consolidated list, and then we will vote in some way, prioritize, rank, however we want to do it in August. It is things like this that then continue to push our plan off the timeline. So I just want you guys to know that. So that's what I would suggest. Marissa, I won't have you write them down. I'll have Noelle take notes, and actually I'll sit down and take notes so I can get exactly what people are saying down correctly. Maybe we just go in a circle and maybe start with our chairperson. You know you're gonna get that. I'm gonna scoop right behind the lady. Thank you.
I really appreciate the work that people put into this. I would add particularly in light of what happened at the Ann Arbor MRF in this past week, the need for intergovernmental coordination, and I think the county can and should take a leadership role in that, so I would put that as, in my mind, as a high priority for the county leadership in intergovernmental coordination, and that could take any number of forms, from collection services to processing to redundancy when there are mishaps or breakdowns, to ensure that there's adequate capacity, to ensure that there's adequate education taking place on a countywide basis. So I would just want to really, from my perspective, that intergovernmental piece with county leadership as something that may be on this list, but really we're not going to pull that out as a separate area of focus and consideration.
I think maybe to add to that is also some of the process that we're working on right now, which is looking at citing additional recycling facilities or drop-off stations throughout the county, see if we need one more comprehensive location or having multiple throughout, and see how can we make it easier for people to bring their recycling to drop-off stations and increase, just like Kirk was mentioning earlier too, kind of how do we ensure that those are in the plan and that we are increasing waste diversion opportunities.
So I would be interested in if somebody smarter than me, whether it's you guys or the county, to look at the governor's recycling plan and the solid waste and sustainability advisory panel's recommendations, and how do those relate to these and what needs to be updated. Like, I think that's really important. Before I start looking at things in detail, I kind of would like to see how that fares. Then I have a few specific things. Adding, we actually moved the goals around, even though they're not in order, to, based on some things said last time about the safe and efficient utilization of management materials, as listed first. Looking at things like disposal capacity guaranteed to meet the county's needs through looking at regional materials management. And I can give you this stuff.
If you have a lot to, feel free to send it to me afterwards, if that's possible.
You know, I like what you said about redundancy. I think that's really important. I think we did write in here some places where we can be consistent with the governor's recycling plan, where we have metrics in the past that you obviously want to update. That seems good to have specific metrics. I think under the develop and support comprehensive public education, that it also talks not just about public education, but stakeholder input, and that you have a stakeholder input process during plan implementation. And then when you look at, I agree on the, the coordination with the counties. I would suggest it's cross-county and other participants, which I think is also talked about in that sustainability advisory panel, that needs to be broadened out a little bit more than just within the county itself.
Just a question to, or is somebody gonna update on the SWISAC thing tonight? Megan or?
I didn't get an update today.
Was on the solid waste?
It's July 20th.
Never mind.
Okay.
We're not gonna talk about it, okay. We can move over to it, okay.
That's good, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I'm wondering about standardization of the collection. We had, most of the county is subscription. And normally I'm all about freedom of choice, but it's just not efficient. I lived in Livingston County, and we'd have 3 different companies roll down the street each week. And, it's more fuel consumption. It's probably a higher cost overall that way. I don't know if there's a way to encourage more standardization in collection, countywide.
So, just to clarify, in terms of service providers, but also in terms of the scope of services? So that be a consistent recycling countywide, and be the same system for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that a fair?
Yeah, and you know, you talk about, you get in rural areas, well, if they're on subscription and they can get the garbage picked up for $100 a year, but if it's recycling too, it's $150. We just get a bigger garbage can, you know?
Right, yep.
That's all I've got.
I submitted my comments, but I guess after reading through them, the only thing I would have to add is I think that there ought to be countywide interest and support for food waste reduction. I don't think composting is the right word, so I think other technologies should be investigated, such as biodigesters. There are other technologies that are being utilized now heavily in Europe as well as throughout the US. We're looking into some, and the city's currently looking into that technology as well. And, you know, I think some of the issues that advanced and other landfills have is, you know, with this organic matter breaking down. And I know from our research at the university, we know that about 40% of our solid waste coming from our non-food generating facilities, so our facilities that don't have cafeterias, is food waste, is organic matter. And I can only imagine that, you know, in residential households it's even higher. So if we want to address this multiple issues on the landfill side regarding space and odors, and, you know, we should really focus on managing that waste stream and reducing it. And there's a lot of things you can do with it. You can actually turn it into a fuel, but I see a lot here on food waste composting. I don't think composting is the right word for us. I think it's food waste reduction / management.
Good.
I agree, I kind of focused on food waste source reduction as well, plus the composting side. I think that's important, I don't know if we really addressed that very well in the 97 edition of the plan. And the other thing is, and I noticed that more and more multi-family housing have recycling opportunities, and but I think that's, I don't know if that's widespread across the county. And then also those rural communities, targeting rural communities, giving them the opportunity, maybe do it through county ordinance that haulers have to provide a range of service. I don't know, some way to do it both on policy and then so that we have more consistent level of service across the county for all residents. But I'm with Andy on the food waste, that's huge, that's huge.
My comments were on two different prongs, if you will. The first one was looking at goals, which I see, and I don't know if the rest of us see it as goals, as kind of the vision, and objectives are the measurables, the things we do, the actions that we take. So I always think goals are fun to do. It's kind of like saluting the flag, but it's also kind of boring. So I spent some time looking at goals. And so that's what the one page is for. And then the objectives, that chart, I was just trying to pull everything together, and then at some point in this process, we can peek through and see if there's something that pops up that we go, oh, we really want to include that. But some of this stuff is old, we've outgrown it, it's not relevant. But, you know, I just felt respect for the people and committees that went before us to just give them a chance to be seen.
Appreciate that.
I submitted my comments, but just a Cliff Notes version, and to echo what Pierre and Andy said too, is I think upstream, we really need to think about upstream, so that captures, you know, it's not about composting, right? That's a downstream thing, but how do we deal with food waste reduction, which is very much an upstream thing. And that goes for any type of material. So what can we do on that end? Technology utilization, I think, is a big one. You know, what if there was more on-demand pickup service, so you weren't, you know, the worst case is you send out a truck and there's one cart out, right? But you're still going through that whole route and still burning all that fuel and still tearing up the road and all that stuff. So what technologies are out there that we can adopt, whether that's an upstream or downstream management tool? And then, you know, as we've seen recently with the financial hit that the recyclable market has seen, and what impact that has on processing and demand for materials and all that stuff, and what can we do as a county to have the wherewithal to weather the comings and goings of the financial market so that we can make sure the programs remain consistent and vibrant.
I would say that our market economy has failed us in the recycling industry, and I agree with what's been said so far. An entrepreneur should be able to use this glass that he can get at rock bottom prices and do something with it. And therefore, our government has to step in at this point. We need to have Washtenaw County or the state of Michigan come in and solve this problem, because our market economy that we're all being pushed into by politics these days is not functioning in this manner. In Pittsfield Township, we had pickups twice a year for just about anything, batteries, tires, oil, used oil, and they were very successful, but Pittsfield Township discontinued them for some reason, probably cost. It was kind of, all the Pittsfield employees came out and they handled the droves of people that came in. But in the outlying county, or townships, I think we could use these as a means of picking material up and not really having to do that much educating as far as people go. People brought things from all over the county. I brought things from Manchester Township, and you had to show that you were a Pittsfield Township resident. But all the things that came to that gathering were not from Pittsfield Township, I can guarantee you. So I think that is something that we need to be more concerned about, is maybe getting a pickup point and make kind of a festival out of it. Pittsfield Township was very successful at this. Another thing I would like to say is that Washtenaw County has always been a leader in the state of Michigan on a number of programs, whether it's law enforcement or social programs or other issues. Washtenaw County has always been a leader in this. So I think in recycling, we need to be some kind of a leader also. And I think the burden is on us to do that. Portland, evidently we have a pattern out there that is working very well. I think we need to adopt more things that Portland is using and actively get them involved in our program here if we have to. I think digesters are a good thing too. That's all I have.
Okay, great.
I still have a little bit more homework to do for my submittal. But one of the bigger things that I see, listening to some of the concerns with composting, food waste, digesters, is the siting process for the county to make sure that we protect the citizens, but we also understand that we can leave enough space to promote something different and something outside the box sometimes. So siting seems to me a concern, not just from the compost industry that I've worked in and the pressure that's being put on it. I know that yard waste, for example, we have one of the best ones at City of Ann Arbor. But if the pressure shows up in Wayne and Macomb, they start shutting them down, they're gonna be looking for other places to go. So we feel that pressure at Advanced to take more yard waste, and we've been pushing back, but it's coming. And if we start taking food waste, not as a county, and start promoting that in this goal, we need to have some sort of good facility siting criteria, because it's gonna look, the first place they're gonna look at is this document that we're making. So I realize how important the goals are to get sustainability higher, to get our goals up higher for recycling. If there's things that need to be, end uses that have to, or excuse me, facilities that have to deal with that, and making sure that we take care of that ourselves.
John?
Yeah, I really focused on the goals, and the current document, that was presented to us. And they're very brief, sort of like Nancy emphasized, a lot of what we've been talking about are the objectives, not the goals. So I took a very overview kind of approach to evaluating the goals. And I guess I'll try to share part of the reason that I asked for the terms and definitions was because I think it emphasizes municipal solid waste all the way through the document. And it really leaves out the commercial and things like construction demolition waste. It's not residential really, at least not the bulk of it. So what I'd like to do is try to make it a little bit more generic. I need to, I suppose, get feedback as to whether that's allowable within the guidelines that DEQ sets for us in creating these plans, but that's what I would like to do. So focusing on municipal solid waste and municipal this, municipal that. If we look at goal 1, create, implement, manage, and monitor the aggressive program to reduce the overall amount of municipal solid waste, it's just solid waste, period. So I'd like to genericize that. I don't know if that's a word, but. And then we have actual figures. Okay, we're gonna create, implement, manage, and monitor an aggressive program to reduce per capita by, and then there's some figures thrown on here. 5% by the year 2005, 10% by the year 2010. If we're gonna replace that, we need to actually set a goal. And what I would propose, I perused the web, looked through, I don't know how many dozens of solid waste plans throughout the country. And just target a 0 waste by 2040. So not figures that are gonna be missed, like I'm sure these were, but really just target 0 waste. 2040 seems to be an okay target around the country, so why not us? And that's really all goal 1 is. Goal 2 was to create, manage, and monitor an aggressive program to increase municipal solid waste again, but it's solid waste diversion rates from the current levels to a county average of, and then there's targets again that were missed. So again, we just re-emphasize, instead of the 0 waste, it's 100% recyclable, or another term. I'm not sure what that term is. It's not recyclable, it's repurposed. I'm not sure.
Diverted?
Diverted, okay. Goal 3 is develop and support, but there's no monitoring there, and I think that was part of the missing thing in the 6-component evaluation. Develop and or support comprehensive public education programs. We know that we can create the programs. It's making the message stick. So the goal 3, I think, is to develop, support, monitor, and evolve, if you will, a comprehensive public education program that is effective. So as a goal, we need to, I think, modify that. Goal 4, ensure the safe and efficient management of municipal solid waste. Again, it's the municipal. We can just take out municipal and say solid waste, or we can add commercial and industrial in there also. And again, the objectives, the only thing I really, no offense, but I really pulled out was that Arbor Hills is called out there in one of the objectives. And I don't think we should do that. If John Doe next year decides they're gonna start up a new landfill, they're not mentioned in the plan. So we can genericize this also by just saying assured disposal capacity is guaranteed to meet the county's need through the use of in-county and other appropriate facilities existing outside the county. It says the same thing, just doesn't call out Arbor Hills. But basically it's ensure the safe and efficient management of solid waste within the county. That's goal 4. Goal 5, operate an integrated intra-county and inter-county solid waste management strategy. I'd like to modify that so that we bring out what we've talked about with encouraging resolutions on a county level, inter-county, state level, and federal level. There's nothing that says that Washtenaw County can't influence Wayne County's policy, or Michigan's policy, or federal government's policy. That's how we're gonna get some of these companies to come into Michigan. So I'd like to emphasize that as goal 5. It really comes down to some real simple things. I pulled up Arlington County, Virginia, and their goals and their plan is reduce, reuse, recycle, recycle, energy from waste, and landfill. Those are their 5. The energy from waste, I don't know if we have that capability, but it's basically, I think, I don't know if it's an incinerator or
Yeah,
what.
the waste goes to Covanta and is burned.
Okay, do we have any of that kind of capability in Michigan?
Do we want it?
Well, there's another question, yeah, yes.
Yeah, Grand Rapids and Detroit are the 2 largest,
But it's not
yeah.
for energy, is it?
Yeah,
It is.
that's the
Steam.
beauty of language and how you write it. They burn stuff to produce energy. So.
Maybe I'll just drop that, 'cause
Yeah.
I
don't say it like it's a panacea. You know,
There's environmental trade-offs.
Yes.
Well, and also that they use gas to burn the trash, and sometimes you're spending more on the gas than you
Yeah.
get from the other side. I mean, it's a very complex and controversial
Yeah.
topic.
Yes.
As one of their goals, I thought I would ask the question, because I didn't know anything about it. So,
I would just, the reason why I sent around the Michigan goals is because we're all playing on the same playing field. And so I appreciate that you spent time looking across different states, but different states have different requirements. So the state of Virginia, you have to have a 25% recycling rate. I used to work there, I had to fill one out every year for the city of Alexandria. So it's not apples to apples. So I appreciate, it doesn't mean that we can't expand our horizons on what we want to do in Washtenaw. I would just be careful about the way that their plans are written, or because they're dictated to be written that way, just like our plan is written to be our
Right.
way. So just keep that in mind. But I appreciate the research that you did
That
to find alternatives. I
That
think
relates
that's
to the
great.
comment about the municipal solid waste. I don't know whether the state dictates that we have to word it that way, but I would just hope that
The
we
plan is
didn't
for
have to.
municipal solid waste. I think that's the state statute. It's not,
So does it just ignore commercial and,
I just think it's regulated differently. And so
so it's not going to be part of our plan?
I think it's part of the plan in the goals that are, I think it's touched upon in the current goals around doing what you can do, not focusing on what you can't do. So what you can do is encourage, you can encourage places like City of Ann Arbor to do a solid waste franchise for commercial stuff. You can encourage a voluntary program, like the Waste Not program, to incentivize people to do that. But you don't have, I don't wanna say the word control, but
We have to have a carrot program versus a stick program.
no, but I'm just seeing as far as municipal solid waste that's what the plan format was set up to deal with. So that's why it's constantly repeated, is because that's what it is. And that's often, it's kind of like, what am I trying to get? Like universal waste. So your household hazardous waste stuff, it's not regulated, and you could technically throw it in the garbage. But there's programs to make sure it doesn't go in the garbage, because you don't want it in your garbage. Businesses, like here in Indy, and
We're
institutions,
regulated by
you're
the
regulated. So that's how I look at with municipal solid waste compared to,
For hazardous,
commercial.
but not for,
No, but
solid
it's because it's,
Right, anything regulated
Business.
by the state,
yeah,
universal waste, which is considered universal batteries,
yeah.
all that stuff. I and Pierre, we can't take that stuff and throw it in the solid waste. You as a resident can. There's nothing legally that's gonna stop you from doing that.
Well, and it doesn't.
One
I mean,
of
it
the things that
does.
came out.
We're trying to explain the differences in regulations.
But I'm trying to get at the solid, there's a huge portion of solid waste that's non-municipal.
Mhm.
And are we not gonna deal with that? Is that not part of
I
our?
think it is part of the plan as it currently is, and
So maybe we can get clarification on what
Yes, sure.
MSW from the state's perspective is, so we understand what the scope.
But it is.
I think it's really fundamental.
It doesn't
And I
work
don't
for
mission.
translated to MSW, it's solid waste, and it goes
Okay,
to CED
yeah.
and industrial, and
Yeah.
it's a solid waste plan, not a municipal solid
Yeah,
waste.
yeah.
So I think that's a good point.
So let's clarify it, and
I think we-
let's be as expansive as we can be,
Yeah.
I think is the take home.
Yep. Anyway, I think that summarizes
Great.
my take on goals.
John, do you happen to, did you type that up, or were you just writing your notes?
I can PDF this to you.
That would be awesome,
They're
just so I capture it. I wanna make sure I got everything that you said.
Okay.
So if you don't mind doing that, that would be great.
No, it's easy.
So after the go-around, are there any kind of final comments that, an aha that you missed when you were going around that you'd want to share? Yeah.
Well, just looking at the food waste reduction, the county is a partner in this whole food policy group. That's a statewide effort, and the county's very active in it. And there's a committee that's been working for years on food waste reduction that pulls in farmers and distribution points, and it's vast.
It's usually
Not
in
that-
healthcare.
At the very least, I think in our plan, we want to make a connection to that effort. Maybe not the specifics.
I really want to support market development, doing what we can to create demand. And market development, hey, we could become a center of recycling, composting, whatever.
If only we had a large research institution of some kind. Or multiple ones, yes.
I mean, I think there's in here, people mentioned education again, there's a big educational goals, I'll send my stuff to you. I'll keep it brief, it's just my own words.
So Anna, what else do you need?
I think that's what I need to consolidate. I guess, I'll say if you think of something in the next, I would say week or so, feel free to shoot me an email. Dave, like maybe before you go on vacation, I know you're thinking about goals before you go on vacation, so if you could send those along, that would be great. I wanna make sure we include those. And we'll just take it from here. I'll bring back these fun pieces. Well, we might not use them. I'll probably bring back different ones that then have consolidated goals, and then we'll do some ranking and prioritization. If I could just clarify just a couple things too while people were going
Yes.
around, is one, the goals from last time in our last plan were not, they were just goals listed, they weren't ranked. And so we want to be clear about that in this plan. I think that was something that we heard and we wanted to cover. So they were just 1, 2, 3, 4. There was no prioritization there. When I'm talking about prioritization, we have about 20 different things you guys are saying. We need to probably get it down a little bit and consolidate. So that's the difference between prioritization. And then we sent out the notification around this SwissApp group, which is an effort through the Governor's Recycling Initiative, and it's looking at solid waste planning and the fact that it needs to change because it could be improved with more regional cooperation, things like that. And there's a public hearing on the 20th of July. In our conversations with the DEQ over the past month, I just want to put like a time frame to this. Like, it's happening and we should be participating, or people can participate and give feedback and comment on that. The impact on our plan process is not immediate because it'll probably be at least 3 to 5 years if something happens before anything would really trickle down to the county level. And so it's something we should keep in mind, but it's also, it's not gonna directly impact, I believe, this current process, given our timeline. So I just wanted to clarify that. Yep.
But do you think it might end up being a directive to all counties to open their plan and do a revision?
Possibly.
Maybe in 5 years, right?
Yeah, that's what we got, was it would be at least.
Both the time we're ready for an update.
Right.
Right.
But they could call for the actual update at that point. And that meeting is the 20th at 10, I think, in Lansing, at, I think, the Lansing Community College.
And that information is or can be on our website?
It is on the Washington County Facebook page, the Water Resources Facebook
Okay.
page. And I could add it to our website.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yep, so those are just a couple things I heard while going around I wanted to clarify. So, I think that's it on goals and
Okay,
objectives.
great. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. I think we compiled a very good list, so appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Community updates. Anything at the county or state level that, other than what has already been mentioned, that anyone wants to highlight at this point? If not, any other updates from committee members that you'd want to share that already has not been shared? Okay, thank you very much. Let's now move to the public comment section. This is general comments unrelated to, or anything that you've heard tonight that you want to comment on as well. So if you could kind of queue up here, that would be great, and come up to the podium. Just go quickly, your name.
He's got us.
I want to set up some boards, I have a video I want to show.
Okay.
Do you want other people to go
Yeah.
while you're setting up, and then?
Oh, that's a good idea, because we are asking 3 minutes per person as the, so, yeah.
Okay,
Speaker wants to go
take my 3
first.
minutes right out, let's go. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dragan Milojevic. I'm the resident of Wayne County, Northwood Township. So thank you for allowing me to address
out of my county group. Anna, enlightening presentation, and congratulations on being courageous to actually rate certain things, quite frankly, and low. That's not the rating of performance on the individual effort, that's just our community's state of mind. And that is accurate if we're low. Now, the reason I am here, obviously, is because the Arbor Hills being brought into the equation and my concerns with that. For true transparency, I'm not associated with any of the activist groups right now, nor am I part of any class actions or any of the activities going on. But I have received the flyers, and I'm concerned. I can smell it. I can see the trucks coming and going, interfering with my normal life. There are schools around there. And my concern is that here we have environment and community interests on one side, and we most likely will end up having the profit and cost of operation on the other. When the profit and cost are in question, oftentimes environment and community loses. And I'm encouraged by your activities here, and I sure hope that we all end up in a fabulous resolution of this issue to where you come with a progressive solution, not only to Arbor Hills. I mean, we have to put the stuff somewhere. We all generate it, but it has to go somewhere. But if the Ann Arbor community with the brain trust that's here cannot figure out something that's radical and new and fantastic, then who the heck can? I mean, if you can disperse 115,000 people out of the big house in less than 20 minutes, you gotta be able to figure this one out. So that's why I'm here. And, one recommendation perhaps is, let's get the true facts out on the table and share that with the communities. So you don't get interferences with people like me every meeting you have and putting your timeline and goals down the road further. Because it is going to become very passionate and it's going to become hot. And when you get the rest of us who are not always as involved, then your engagement will go far beyond the levels you want. And let's all just figure it out and in the interest of the environment and our kids. Because, 20, 30 years from now, that corner may or may not live up to all of the promises made today. We all have seen evidence time and again that those things bear problems and they resurface down the road and catch us, some by surprise, some are long gone that made the decision knowingly. So I just appeal to you, don't let interference stop you from becoming the leader in not only Wayne County, but Southeast Michigan and Michigan for that, because after all, that pure Michigan should really mean something. And we should all aspire to it. Unfortunately, by the virtue of having this issue with Arbor Hills, you're going to become the spotlight leaders on it. So I congratulate you on your work. I applaud you for your courage, and I appeal to you to really, really figure this one out right. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you ready?
Utilize the chairs here.
I need you guys some foam for this wood. It's heavy.
I'm repurposing it.
All right, I'll take that.
I've had it for a while and I'm repurposing it.
Do you want your slides up or the video up?
The video queued up, please.
Yep.
If you wouldn't mind.
Can you just move that for 1
Yeah.
second? Thank you. I think this is it.
That is it. Looks like it stalled a little bit.
Let's just see if we can play.
Yep. Just pause it, please. Pause it. Okay. That will be in the way a little bit.
That's okay, I got it now.
So
tonight. I lost my speech.
Maybe I took it?
Um,
I think I did.
That's it.
Much as it was it. Where's that pizza and beer?
You guys are on the same team. So I've heard a lot tonight, and it's been very educational for me. So no need to apologize for the time that it's taking tonight. It's not a problem. It's been very good for my education on what the committee's doing and where they're going and the vision that they have. Before I go into my speech real quick, my concern is based around the additional landfill and the proposal for the additional landfill. And my concern is that it may allow the county to, if that is pushed through and it gets approved, that it may allow the county to relax their efforts on waste diversion. That's my concern on that. I'm sorry, my name is Bruce Leonard. I live on Napier Road, which is just up, just south of 7 Mile, which is just up from the landfill. So I know the area very well. I know all the problems and everything that are associated with it. The Arbor Hills landfill is located, and obviously many people know this, in the northeast corner of Washtenaw County, way up there in the corner. Bordering Wayne County, bordering Northville Township. In 1970, Northville Township's population was only 9,522. Much of the population was located east of Sheldon Road, which is about 3 miles to the east of the landfill. The western side of that township was virtually all farmland, as you can see in the 1997 aerial photo there from Detroit Edison's archives. And you can see Arbor Hills landfill in the corner there. Zooming forward to the 2010 census, the population just under 30,000 now, living in just over 12,000 homes, many of which are now between Napier and Beck. A large portion of which are within 2 miles of the proposed new landfill. And you can see the current aerial photo with the greater population density there now. So things have changed. Western Northville Township is no longer rural, as shown in the pictures. It is highly urbanized, as you see in the photo. Everyone knew the landfill was there south of 6 Mile when we bought or built our homes, right? But there was no talk of a second landfill being created. And now this committee is evaluating a request to consider putting in that additional landfill in the backyards of established subdivisions and homes and schools and community centers and the nature center with community gardens that's right there next door, and a state park. It's gonna be within a half a mile. So a landfill just makes no sense. A new landfill makes no sense. Some of you rode with Fred Shatko, and we talked about that earlier, to see what the township has become. And I'm gonna show a video here that reiterates what that drive through the township showed. So I apologize for it being so choppy. I think it was just buffered up, or not buffering properly because it was queued up for so long. But it's on the video, it's on the DVD I handed out, so you can watch it again and study it if you like. So thank you very much.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
Is there current construction going on in that
Absolutely.
Steeplechase subdivision?
Absolutely.
New homes being built?
And nobody knows about the landfill, everybody's buying unaware,
Well, that's
that's the unfortunate part.
yeah, but they seem like they're the closest to the current landfill.
Absolutely.
Right?
They're the closest to the current. They're downwind of it, right, prevailing winds. They're gonna be even closer if that new landfill goes in, only 1,000 feet is shown there. And again, everybody knew the existing landfill's there, right, you can see it, you can't miss it. Your nose tells you it's there every day. But nobody knows that and we're trying to educate people, that this second landfill is being proposed. And that's our focus, is to educate the committee here on the damage it will do to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I just may add to this gentleman's question, I'm sorry, I can't figure your name, Andrew?
Yeah.
This is the thing that we absolutely must prohibit ourselves from falling in a trap of, well, it was there, they should have known. Because one existing, without any mention or anybody knowing about second coming now as an idea. This is a corner of the county. Years back in the history, everybody threw their dirty laundry in the corner of the county. So Washington County put the landfill at the corner. Wayne County had prisons and the psychiatric ward down in 7 Mile. But times have changed. We don't live in those times anymore. So we can't use that as a premise to give us license to pursue necessarily the present course. We should figure out how to do it better. We should be that better.
Appreciate that. Let's keep order here and appreciate it. Note that there are opportunities to contact us, send questions via the county, and comments outside of meetings as well, but want to keep order here in this setting. So if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay.
If you can just,
Is this the
when she
slide?
starts, you can just push F5 and then we'll run on it.
So I'm just gonna lower these down real quick.
My name is Sharon Darren. I live on Napier Road also, between 6 and 7 Mile. And one of my biggest things is the landfill garbage truck traffic. This is where I live. It's excessive, and we went to the meeting in Salem Township on February 9th. And Thomas Flanagan, the manager of the landfill, asked us to start monitoring it. That's where these pictures are coming from. He wanted to know the date, the time, the truck company, the color of the truck. I offered to do Napier Road. At certain times, there's one truck every 2.6 minutes to 4.3 minutes traveling down that road at 55 miles an hour. It's a dirt road. I also want you to keep in mind that Napier is not the only road leading into that landfill. There's 3 other ways in there. The amount of traffic is a serious problem for an area zoned residential agricultural. We have school children, people bicycling, horseback riders, joggers, residents walking the road. The landfill hours are Monday through Friday, 6 to 5, and Saturday, 7 till 12. That's a tremendous amount of trucks using that road. We on Napier and our surrounding neighbors are going to be directly affected by this decision. A home is the biggest investment we will ever make. Our homes will be within less of one mile of not one landfill, but possibly 2 now. And they're right, in the 70s, there were this all was undeveloped. My house was built way earlier than this. And it's just not a good location for the landfill, the new landfill. I want to thank you for taking your time to go on the tour of our surrounding communities, because so many of you are not from that area, and you don't know what that area looks like and how it's changed. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
That slideshow was also on the DVD for you to review.
There's a video that didn't come up, that's very powerful if you could watch it. There's a video at the end of that slideshow. Well, thank you.
I'm Debbie Brown, and I've lived on Napier Road for 32 years. I live north of 7 Mile. And I just want you, if you do watch those videos or you watch this up here, to know that I am not in one of the subdivisions. And yes, I did know that the dump was there 32 years ago. They had 2 expansions, and both of those 2 expansions were supposed to be their last. And now we're looking at possibly a new dump across and in the street in a different location. We have more trucks than we've ever had in our life on that road. It's absolutely ridiculous. That one that was in the ditch that the garbage truck was pulling out, what happens is they don't make a police report because it's not an accident. The buddy system, they pull them out, the ditches doesn't get ditched, it doesn't get fixed. It's very, very dangerous. And as you're looking onto that video and you see the subdivisions, there's homes all down through those trees too, because that's an aerial view and you can't see them. You don't see Sharon's location, you don't see my location. You've seen one house across the street there when they were doing the truck situation. You've seen the pump on her side. There's houses down through Napier Road on both sides of Napier Road. That is single-family residential on the Northville side. And on the Salem side, where Sharon lives in Washtenaw County, is agriculture. But there's homes down through that road on each side where we have to go and get our mail and where we have to protect the children who are bicyclists and the walkers and the hikers. And they like to go on the dirt road because it's better for their feet than being on cement. And we just ask that you guys consider us as residents. I'm very concerned about the contaminants of the soil going across the street and down the road into our grazing areas and into our garden areas. And I thank you for all your consideration, and please don't put it as close to any residential place, for anybody, I don't care who it is. You know, put it somewhere else where there's not residential. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Good evening, folks. My name is Ben Baucom. Didn't prepare anything to come today. I just wanted to observe, and this is my first meeting like this ever in my life of coming to participate. So thank you for the experience. I just wanted to reiterate on a point that was heard earlier. People don't know about this expansion proposal. I bought my house and moved in mid-December of last year. Actually relocated to this area to work in Ann Arbor. And now I'm looking at financial ruin with the price of my house, right? No one's gonna live across the street from the dump. So I do hope that you take that kind of information into consideration. I do wanna make sure that other folks don't find themselves in the situation that I'm in. So, thank you. Thank you.
My name is Spanky Yang. I live in Northfield Township. I actually just learned, I don't know all these person. I just know this weekend, because association, some people send an email. That way, for me, it's very shocked. It's the first time I learned something like this happened. And I think I decided, quickly learn from you. I think it probably has a history, okay? As I can understand that time maybe is not many residents is area. But now, if you guys, I just welcome all your people, go to that location to take a tour, then you will understand the right way. Because now is so density, like a resident, also is like average house value is like say 500K. Okay, and of course, like I say, now I think what I think is we need to put the people first. Okay, business second. All right, the people's like a health. Right, just like we like in the Michigan Lake, we have several states share the same lake, but we all have the responsibility to make the environment friendly to all the people. And so people always said like children whatever. So this is all true. So my economics too late. My appeal is too straightforward, very very straightforward. One, never stop extension. No more extension, it's absolutely no extension. Second, even if this existed landfill, need to be sealed. Try to be like a contained, okay? Try to contain or sealed. That's the two petition, because the one you already exist, you cannot, you just be sealed, contained. But you never do again for the new one. And also, like look at the business side. Also, it's not like a good business decision to develop that area as like a landfill, because nearby they have a golf club, right? The golf course. Then you can make that kind of neighborhood is more like say if you have a nice club, golf club, you can increase your business. And make like a neighborhood is nice, the people like moving, you actually value added, you can have more tax, right? You can get more tax from property tax. So you have other like business wise, also is not a good decision to establish second new one. So again, I just two things, definitely stop. Second is seal the current whatever already have it. And things like I learned from a weekend, we quickly pop up the information to all peoples we around. And as I know from the application, the people already signed against it. So absolutely, and I wish you can be heard the voice. And absolutely, we don't want to go to an ugly stage. Okay, we are human beings. We are smart. We can have a compromise. We can look at the comprehensive, get a best solution to solve the people health issue. Also of course we need to find some area for the land waste stuff. But is there any more effective solution? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I want to thank you for everything that you went over tonight. I want to thank you actually for so intensely assessing, analyzing, planning for this. We really appreciate that. So, first of all, my name is Annette Scabaris, and I'm one of the residents in the steeplechase sub that you saw earlier that's very close. In fact, I'm very close to where the new proposed expansion is going to be, and I can tell you I'm frightened by this. As a healthcare professional, I want to talk a little bit about human effects. I've been a healthcare professional both as practicing clinician and administrator for over 30 years. I've observed personally and professionally in my practice human effects, both pain and suffering from hazardous waste exposure. I want to just talk briefly about my personal experience, which was not very long ago with my mother. I watched my mother as I cared for her as she was suffering, as she had been exposed as a younger person to hazardous waste in the Oak Ridge plant. She had been told all along that there was no problem by the private companies and by the governmental agencies. And then, about 40 years later, she is already suffering with cancer and very much other effects, dying. She subsequently died. But prior to that, 4 years, the companies and the governmental agencies came to her and said, gee, we made a mistake. This is a direct cause. Your suffering is a direct cause. At that time, they wanted to remunerate and offer her compensation, her and her family and friends that had also been exposed, but it was too late. I don't want this to be too late for us like that was for my mom. As you're probably aware, there are many research studies that have been done over the past few decades. These have demonstrated with statistically significant results direct relationships between living near a landfill within 1 mile and a 4-fold greater incidence of bladder cancer, leukemia, lung cancer, lymphoma, and gastric cancer in many of these studies. I would love to provide them for you, and I can bring them to you next time. As well as there has been established evidence through some of these scientific studies of an increased incidence of low birth weight for children, neural tube defects, as well as smaller stature from children that lived in those areas. Not to mention all the different things, the minor things as we might call it, as asthma, emphysema, respiratory illnesses. Those are things that we see on a daily basis. So I see that, you know, last time we talked about the population increasing over the past couple decades. And we really are coming here to you, as I heard everybody talk about tonight, we're really pleading that you really reconsider how close now. Back then, there was not the population. The Ridgewood School District, it breaks my heart when I see those trucks go down, and I see those kids, and I saw one today when I was coming in, coming down 55 miles an hour right by those children, and the dust is flying in the air, and I know that they're inhaling all this. It just breaks my heart to see that that's happening. So we really, really would like to see you please consider and take this expansion of the landfill under consideration. The human effects really, both from the air and the leachate, will affect our lives for many years. In fact, as you being our neighbors, as we're very close neighbors, we really, our children, our grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are going to be going to school, to college, to working with and marrying your children, great-grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And those genetic and physical effects are going to be there forever, and it's going to affect all of us. So please take that into consideration. Thank you so much for doing all this.
Hello, I'm Tracy Birkenauer from Northville Township, and it was mentioned briefly, and I think some of you may be aware that we did, I don't want to say it was a competition, but I know that you've had trouble getting engagement with your survey, and I thought, well, we're going to start a petition to kind of, not necessarily compete with your numbers, but we're thinking that we probably could do a little better. And I know you have, I don't know if you have 250 responses, but we've had our petition up since I started it late Saturday night, and I know we have over 600 responses so far. You have the list of the names of the respondents. You'll notice that many of them are from, the majority are from Northville. But what it doesn't signify is the number from Salem Township. I don't think Salem has its own zip code. So people who live in Salem, they're considered a resident of Lyon Township or Plymouth or Northville. So that's a little bit misleading. But what I found really interesting are the comments that people were willing to add, keeping in mind that this is publicly available, that you could go online and you could see. I know, I don't have any service here, so I don't know how many responses we have, but I'm getting one like every 3 minutes, and I'm getting a new comment about every 5 minutes, which is pretty dramatic. So I wanted to just read a couple of them, and I don't know if everyone here is aware of it, but if you go to stoparborhills.com, our website, you can see the petition. It's right up in the header. I encourage everyone to, to sign the petition and to add comments.
Thank you for the effort to lead that effort. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We just let you know we can.
Yeah, we're trying. We're taking out ads. We finally started spending some money, just so you know. We had a garage sale. It was very, very successful. Yeah, it was fantastic. And the community engagement. Ironically, you saw Thayer Nature Center on the map, and that's where we held the garage sale, which actually was a little depressing because looking literally across the street, like, if I could throw a rock that far, I can't, but that's where the new landfill will be, and it's like so depressing. And those of you who went on the tour, thank you so much. It was fantastic to get to know you a little better. But you saw like where my house is and how I do that cut through where I walk my dog to there. Well, that's where the landfill's gonna be. It's
How they like dodging
right
the
there.
trucks.
I don't think they like dodging the trucks, and I don't think they liked the bumpy ride in the van either. From the
Try
roads
walking
to
across the
highway.
street to get your mail.
Yeah, it's not fun. So I just wanted to read a couple of these comments. I don't want this to take too long because I know it's getting late. But you see here the first comment I thought was good. Jason House from Northville. I don't believe it is in the best interest of the community, and there is not enough accountability to demonstrate the landfill is not and will not pollute the neighboring areas, which that's already been proven. John Woolfolk, he's from Northville, he lives in my neighborhood. The current dump, as permitted, will last another 16 or 17 years. That's something I don't hear that mentioned very often, but they say that the air capacity or whatever, that it still has 17 years left. I don't know if that's the case because it seems like they really are revving up the operations. As they mentioned, the truck traffic has been growing exponentially, and as we saw in the Republic Services response, it's the largest landfill by volume in the state, which is pretty frightening. There is no need for an expansion permit until that time. I also think the dump is a nuisance to the community, is likely to pollute the local water and air. It will also adversely affect the local property values. We have one from Ann Arbor, Jennifer and I. The landfill is close to our house in Northville, and like many others, we were told the existing landfill would be closing soon, not that another one would be started. There have been complaints of smells by neighboring subdivisions, and the landfill is right in the middle of 2 elementary schools. That's the other thing we don't talk about a lot, is that we have an elementary school, Ridgewood, that's in Northville, but then we have another elementary school that's in Salem that isn't really talked about a whole lot. And then I don't know if you saw the news last night about the concrete crushing operation, Halo, it's right in the heart of Salem Township. These poor people, I can't even imagine. The health effects are unbelievable. People are having serious respiratory issues. They're all terrified of getting cancer. And do we really want to do this to them? It's unconscionable in my mind. So please consider this, and I encourage you all to read the comments, look at the list of names, it's pretty substantial, and
that was only in like 3 days that you got, what?
I did it late Saturday night.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to do it, and you know how you
And
want
not
it to be
everybody knows
perfect,
about
and it's
it.
not perfect, I apologize, it's
No,
not
no.
that well written.
Not
It
everybody
could be
knows.
better, but I just thought I needed to do it, it's a whole good, great thing. So I just did it, and the response has been pretty overwhelming, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the public?
My name is Chris Farina, and I live in Steeplechase, and we're building just north of 7 Mile on Napier. And I was talking with other neighbors, and I heard that last year, Ridgewood School had to bring the kids in from recess a couple times because of the smell from the landfill. And that's pretty bad when you have to tell the kids, up inside because it's too dangerous out here, the smell is too bad. And I hate when companies like to pretend things are green that really aren't, by calling it a landfill. It used to be called a dump, because that's where you dump stuff. And when you start changing the name to something politically correct like landfill, it makes it sound, oh, that's actually pretty, a landfill, that's cool. No, it's a dump. You know, call a dump a dump. Couple comments.
Thank you.
I don't know if it was true that it happened. I'd have to check into that because I haven't had
Yes,
time.
it has.
We confirmed it's more than that, and the shutdown and ventilation.
Okay, and so, that's not good.
Anyone else that would like to address the committee at this time? Seeing no one, close the second public comment period. Just would note that our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, August 10th, 5:30 p.m. The location will be the Ypsilanti Township Hall. We're trying to move this around to different locations throughout the county to engage as many populations as possible. So it's the Ypsilanti Township Hall, which is on South Huron River Drive, Ypsilanti address. So you can check out more information on our website. If you'd like anyone from the public to chat afterwards, some of us at least will be available after the meeting here as well. Is there anything else?
Yes, quick question, when we can know regarding this decision, regarding the extension, when you will be making the decision?
We talked about that earlier with the timetable, or maybe before you arrived. So
Yeah,
see us
sorry,
afterwards.
yeah.
See us afterwards. We did talk about that earlier in the meeting.
Yes, so roughly say when you are making the decision to extend or not?
Roughly, we're looking to approve in November.
November, okay, yeah. All right, thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? If not, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. 10.
Cordina, I am not a Christmas girl. Cordina.
Yep. That's one other difference, does make business and president of
You all right?
I need to take a little hard look at our budget, because I think, we're gonna do our budget tonight. So probably need to do a check. And then, yeah, I think we talk
I found out because of the wire that came in. I took a picture of it so I can possibly see the address and the video. I came from Europe.
You know, he's not like, I'm trying to, so it's, I think that's the big
You might over there.
You don't wanna know what I want my
I think